The action keeps getting better and better in the Clash Royale League West as we head into our top 5 plays of week number 3. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, ring that bell, and never miss a moment as the top players from the West vie for a shot at the World Finals in Shanghai, China. Opening things up at number 5, it's the Aztec Eagle from Chivas Esports, Adrian Piedra playing Goblin Giant Sparky. We're going to slow this one way down so you see this absolutely perfect zap to buy the room for Sparky to take down that right-hand tower. GG, well played, Adrian Piedra. On to number 4, it's Saint Bellican. And what do you think Belly's gonna do every single week? That's right, throw out a big, huge clone, but I am JP, not prepared for it, just a lightning and a barb barrel, and he is absolutely disgusted with himself. Let's look at this finish up nice and close, and more importantly, look at the walk-off here from JP. He knows that's GG, well played. All you can do is throw your phone down, get the heck out of there, and regroup for next week. Bellican coming in at number 4. On to number 3. Belly back in this top 5, but on the other side of things, because he's up against one of the best in the entire world, Ruben, with a beautiful bit of minor wall breakers work. And check this out, goes minor to the back to pull the knight from the front. The knight goes all the way back around the long walk past the tower. That makes just enough room for the wall breakers to come in for a huge connection. That is just par for the course for Ruben, who has long been one of the best in all of Clash Royale. Our number 2 play, it's 2v2. SK Gaming's undefeated duo Morton and Sam up against Boofmac and Azealis in the 3-0 versus 3-0 match. Winner stays undefeated, and check this out. SK is way behind, but a big connection, and look at that, the death bomb on tower. Let's look at the spells though. Snowball, Fireball, and Log for SK Gaming at the bottom. Tribe Gaming only has the Fireball and just used their freeze. So as we get down to the wire, 11 HP, no freeze to secure SK Gaming with the nail biter of a win. That deserves a fist bump from the Germans. GG, well played. SK Gaming 4-0 in first place going into our next week. And our top play back again to Team Queso versus Cream Royale Betis, and this is a great heads-up play from a veteran like Kuchiku. The miner comes in to get the lightning block and keep that flying machine alive. Look at this one more time. It's all about knowing your HP. Goblin Brawler, Miner, Night Witch, protecting the flying machine, making that push so much stronger. That is a top-tier play from a long-standing veteran. Guys, that's it for our top 5 plays from week 3. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, ring the bell so you never miss a moment of the great Clash Royale League West action here every single Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. in the West, 1 p.m. in the East, 7 p.m. in Europe.
Get the rest of the defense off. Oh my word!
Perfeita.
No! 4 in a row for Team Queso. Entering into our second half of the regular season, and this Saturday, a lot of questions will be answered. A battle for control of second place between 2 teams that are both pulling double duty this weekend. The defending world champions Team Liquid face off against the powerhouse roster, now with 2 losses in a row of Tribe Gaming. And then finally today, Cream Royale Betis and Spacestation give us some more clarity in the middle of the pack. Hello and welcome to Clash Royale League West. I'm Rich Slayton, joining me as always, my good friend Andrew Guy, for a full weekend of Clash Royale action today and tomorrow here on our YouTube channel. Andrew, this is going to be a lot of questions answered. SK Gaming cannot quite clinch this weekend, But if they win one more time 6-0, they're going to be very, very close.
Yeah, they're getting very close, and Tribe is still looking to bounce back after a couple interesting matches. So I'm very excited about this weekend. But first, make sure you guys are joining us here on YouTube. Also, go hang out with us on Twitch. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, following on Twitch, and notifications are turned on both platforms. That way you can catch us every single time we go live, which is every Saturday and Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Those are the best places to catch us. And also, you know, Rich and I put up content on YouTube every now and then. Also, catch us on Twitter at Esports Royale EN. You can follow me at Andrew Guy. You can follow him at Rich Slayton. And of course, we have both been talking about Fantasy Royale. Rich actually just put up a video last night. I've got my roster locked and loaded, ready to go. 250,000 gems, 250,000 gold, 100 gems, 4 players that get the most crowns every single week. Those trades open every single week, and you got to get them set. Those lineups got to be locked in before Saturday morning when we go live. So if you haven't done it yet, it's a little bit too late. Rich, how you feeling about these break time battles? The average Joe gets to go up against the CRL Pro thanks to statsroyale.com.
I love it. I love it. You know, whenever you're casting any Clash Royale event, whether it's here at CRL or a grassroots tournament, and you have big name players in there, half the comments are somebody going, "I'm better than these guys. Let me get in on it, man. I can prove it. These guys are nothing." Well, here's your shot right now. Get your shot at break time battles. Take a swing at a pro, and let me tell you, so far, hasn't worked out for the Joes. But who knows, maybe one of these days, one of y'all will unseat a top-tier Clash Royale League pro. You can see those leaderboards right there. Number 1 player each week gets a big one. We already saw someone go up against Pelican, against RF. What else do we have in store, Andrew?
So now Madeira is going to be facing off against Pompeo, the balloon master himself. And then next week, it's going to be Lucas, the rookie, who's been kind of wowing all of us here in head-to-head play. So guys, get in, get going. Statsroyale.com for break time battles so that you can get on the leaderboards. You can get some swag if you're in the top 5. Or, of course, that number 1 spot gets to go up against a CRL Pro. Whew. All right, matches this week, Rich.
Yeah, we have a whole lot of fun ones. We talked about one of the first ones we're going to be getting into, of course, the battle for second place. Dignitas and Team Queso both at 3-1. You know, the middle of the pack currently is mostly at 3-2 because those teams have already done their doubleheaders. Well, guess what, Andrew? It's doubleheader weekend for both of our teams battling for second. So Queso and Dig open things up, and one of them will get control of second place, at least for the time being. And if they can win out on the weekend, if one team can go 2-0 on the weekend, they will have firm control of one of those top 2 spots. But there's a lot of teams in the middle chasing for that number 2 place. And of course, remember, Andrew, that the top 2 places get an automatic first round bye and guarantee themselves a spot in World Finals.
Yeah, and that is absolutely huge. So we're going to take a look at this week's matches. We don't really have much news for you guys this week other than that there was that buff to the Electro Giants health. So that's something that we can talk about, obviously, as we move forward and gets into competitive play. We've been talking about it a lot. Team Queso facing off against Dignitas to start the day. Tribe and Liquid in a must-win situation for Liquid if they want to keep their playoff hopes alive. And to close out our afternoon, it will be CRB facing off against SSG, Cream, Real, Betis, and Spacestation Gaming to kind of even out or clear that 3, 4, 5, 6 spot. Talk to me a little bit about Sunday, Rich.
Sunday will be interesting, and a lot of that will depend on what happens the day between Team Queso and Dignitas. The winner of that will go into a huge advantage, and Queso will face off against Chivas, which might have the advantage in 2v2, but of course, when you get into King of the Hill in 1v1, what do you do against Ruben? So far, absolutely nothing. Dignitas against Pain Gaming, who might be more dangerous now with their new 2v2 look, putting Lucas in with Wallace in the 2v2, and then finally, SK Gaming currently 5-0, and I don't think anyone expects anything other than a 6-0 start. Misfits hopefully can get things together, but it's going to be a tough climb for them against an all-cylinders firing SK Gaming.
So here we go, taking a look at our predictions. You and I have actually fallen behind Twitter, as well as our friends Manu and Koji at 19-5. You and I at 16-8 here with our predictions. Bruno and Deco, we gotta give them a pass because they will always pick Pain Gaming no matter who they're playing up against. Well, let's take a look here. Dignitas only picked by Manu for our first matchup of the day. Everyone going with Tribe, and then to close out the day, you and myself and, of course, our Portuguese-speaking casters are all going Space Station. Koji and Manu going for Cream, Real, Betis. Rich, why do you think Manu believes that Dignitas can win over Team Queso with the way that Ruben has been playing. Because Bale's been playing really well, but he hasn't been playing the same level as Ruben, right?
Well, here's the reason why, is because I think Dig does have a slight advantage in the 2v2. And if they win the 2v2 and you can get through, whether it's Benny or Kuchi and IMJP, which so far teams have been able to do, all you need is one really good matchup against Ruben. If you get the right matchup against Ruben and you get him out in one game, don't give him a shot to get to the 1v1. You've got Queso done. So I understand the argument that Manu's making there. This is a hard weekend to pick, Andrew. I think that our opening match is very, very close, and our closing match today between Cream and Spacestation, you and I were both talking before, such a difficult one to pick, and we both lean slightly towards Spacestation.
Yeah, and with this one, we both lean slightly towards Team Queso just because of how well Ruben is playing. But like you said, this can be won in 2 sets. If you can get Ruben out in King of the Hill, that is the way to do it. Yes, Bale has been playing really well in that 1v1 set, but can he take down Ruben? Let's take a look at our first match of the weekend.
Team Queso e Dignitas, uma partida importantíssima para Team Queso que tá procurando garantir a vaga o quanto antes, tá na briga. E olha, a Dignitas tá com um time muito forte, mas a Team Queso atualmente tá sendo chamada de Team Ruben. Acho difícil perder essa, hein?
Queso and Dig battling for the number 2 spot. Winner gets not just control of the second place position, but the head-to-head matchup. This one is huge, especially for Dig. So a little look into our teams as they come into today, and so far on one side, it's been Team Queso, aka Team Ruben, carrying with that 14-3 record to get the cheesy ones where they are at the moment, and he really has been phenomenal. In the 2v2 side, it's been Benny and Kuchiku, who have won one of their sets today. Might be a critical one, though, to set up their teammates to have success in the King of the Hill. IMJP still looking to get into perfect form, but if Team Queso can click in the second half of the season, starting today, they could have a nice, clear road to those top 2 spots.
And their opponents today, the away team, Team Dignitas, Flash, Código, Lince, and Bale right there, putting up some gaudy numbers this season. A 75% win rate in head-to-head with 12 games played, and he's hanging out at 75% as well in the King of the Hill at 3-1. Today is the day for Bale to show he can hang with the top dogs if he can face off against Ruben and put Dignitas in that W column.
Very curious to see what Dig has in store in both 2v2 and King of the Hill today. And you can see the duos all ready to rock. Benny and Kuchiku, no surprises there. The long-standing best friends and duo on the other side, Código and Flash, ready to go. And they were certainly pumped up in their last few 2v2 matches, Andrew. The success that they've had over the season, especially with their mid-season wins against Cream and against Team Liquid, huge for this 2v2 pair.
Yeah, so Dignitas, as you just said, they took down Team Liquid in that 2v2, but otherwise they've really, really struggled in this set. Of course, Team Queso in the same boat. They've only won one 2v2 set, and that was in their first match against Misfits, who still have yet to find a win. So the 2v2 duos have struggled a bit. It's about who can play better today to give their head-to-head guy a little bit of cushion moving into sets 2 and maybe 3.
And that's huge, right, Andrew? Not just having the cushion. I really think that the way that Dignitas wins this is in 2 sets. If they can win a good 2v2, and then just, if I'm Dignitas, whoever goes up against Ruben, I'm just going for snipe. I'm swinging for the fences with matchup and trying to make sure that you can get something he can't play against. I think that's how Dig wins this. If this goes to the 3rd and final set, 70-30, 80-20 chance Queso walks away with the W.
Yeah, I agree. It just seems like Ruben is just too good right now. 9-1 in King of the Hill, and what is it, 9-3, I believe, in 1v1?
Yeah, he's crazy. He's crazy right now. It's been a dominant performance like we've rarely ever seen from anyone in CRL.
So here we go. Mega Knight, Ram Rider, E-Wiz push coming in for Bennyhu and Kuchi to deal with. A lot on the board, a defensive freeze. It's going to pay off okay, but look at all that damage in and very little elixir to deal with this Ram Rider.
And that Mega Knight just stayed on the board for so long. You get the defensive freeze down, and the Mega Knight not able to get tanked all the way down, or killed all the way down, and next thing you know, tower taken, Cody going flash out to an early lead with a minute left in regulation.
Yeah, not even a double elixir yet. Cody going flash clearly in the driver's seat. Benny and Kuchi just out of rhythm. They get too aggressive with that balloon push in. I get it because it seems appealing, but their opponents defend very, very efficiently. The Mega Knight comes down, 2 Ram Riders in, tower down 10 seconds later.
Setting up to the left-hand side is Team Queso, balloon behind, and of course now we know they're going for that freeze combo. Probably the graveyard freeze collection for these two. We'll see if they're able to make anything happen. So far, no big connection with 35 seconds left.
Yeah, and you see them drop those bats up high, Benny and Kuchi, to slow that Ram Rider down, just slowing down the balloon, but the problem is just not enough tankage in front of that balloon to actually get on through to the tower. That's going to happen again on this side. Even if the balloon were to get a drop there, it's still so far gone.
That lightning trying to make sure no damage gets in might have been a slight overspend on the part of Dignitas. And there you go. The freeze comes in. Snowball trying to save the tower. This balloon will get one shot. Can it get a second in time? And it does.
It does get the second. Bomb will not do enough damage. No spell power coming in. And Benny and Kuchi finally put it together in that last push, but that's just because they got over-aggressive in single elixir. They were able to hold back a little bit, use that giant skeleton bomb to their advantage. Then they would have been able to turn up the heat as soon as they got to that 1 minute mark.
A big, big opening win for Cody Go and Flash, and this is exactly what they need. They need to start off heavy, start off hot, and get crowns in early on. Cody Go adding yet another win to his record on the season has been big for Dignitas for a long time. Benny, who the overall career wins leader for Team Queso at 46, fails to add another one in this game.
Yeah, it's hard to pass on Cody Go here for Fantasy Royale this week. Just a guy that you know is going to come in the 2v2, has done great in King of the Hill, and it's been a really exciting season for Cody Go because he's faced so much adversity this season, but Dignitas is still doing so well, and a lot of that is because of the work that he's put in King of the Hill, now in 2v2. It's a really exciting season for Dig because they're working really, really hard, and they're reaping the rewards.
You see the freeze come in, but not able to get any value off of it. That Princess Tower by herself not going to do much to a Mega Knight, and a few more big swings coming in. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. And you spend that kind of elixir on defense, you expect to get some good value out of it, really put a stop to the push in the opposite lane. It really ended up doing almost nothing for Queso.
And all of the units that were out of cycle for Queso were their highest DPS units. Both the Musketeers, both of the Lumberjacks, the Skeletons even, all of these things, the Bats. Any of that coming in late to help assist the freeze to take that Mega Knight off the board is what you need to do. But since they spent so heavily at the bridge trying to support that balloon push, just like he talked about, the freeze comes down, but the Princess Tower is not going to take down that beefy Mega Knight. And of course, Dignitas does the smart thing. They wait to see what mistakes Queso were going to make, and then they send in that last second, completely naked, down to 0 Ram Rider to take the tower.
Yeah, there's nothing in its way, nothing to stop it. Pretty easy win for Dig here in game number 1. Let's go ahead and jump into game number 2. The Owls having the lead as we go into the second game of our opening set.
Benny and Kuchi have been playing together and have been playing competitively for so very long. I need to see some of that poise, that confidence, that calm, that veteran know-how of just slowing the game down a second. We all know that...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, well, that's what's interesting and so strange about Kuchi and Benny is, you know, we've talked about the struggles of teams like, for example, Liquid this season, where you have lots of veterans but no synergy, not experience playing together, so some strange mistakes happen. You don't expect these kind of, getting stretched this thin, these types of overspends, these kind of mistakes from a duo that's played together for 5 seasons.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where you really wonder what's happening. It seems like their evolution, or their relationship's almost been devolving instead of evolving. There's still time left this season. There's still this game and this set left, so let's see what Kuchi and Benny can do.
Giant Skeletons both set up into the right-hand lane as the first minute of gameplay passes. Trying to get to that E-Wiz in the back with the barbell. Heal Spirit with some nice coverage there. Good pickup by Dignitas.
Yes, Hill Spirit, as you can see, used by all 4 players, even with that slight nerf, still very, very firmly in this 2v2 meta, and you understand why. Provides a lot of utility. If you can get, oh my good lord, a very, very poorly timed defensive freeze.
Yeah, that was, I think it froze nothing, 0 things were frozen, and that's, you kind of want a thing to be frozen at some point. So 11:06,
Wow.
Back-to-back games, back-to-back misplays with the defensive freeze.
Yeah, I mean, the first one, at least they locked the units down, but they didn't support it. And on this one, it's just a complete whiff. Really, really tough here for Kuchi and Benny. Now they're going to need to bounce back, being behind in tower damage and behind in elixir for the rest of this game.
And you have mortars down both sides. Good control from one side and a late drop on the other. Kuchi and Benny just cannot get it together here in 2v2. And Andrew, you and I were talking about our plans for Fantasy Royale before we got into the day, and we were discussing whether Kuchi was a pick. A lot of people are picking him for Fantasy Royale this week because of having the double duty, but this kind of gameplay for 2v2 is why I picked him as a sit rather than a play.
Yeah, and maybe you're going to be the one that comes out with more points. I figured Kuchi's a guy that can do it in 2v2. He always comes in King of the Hill. That's why I rostered him. But with these plays today, it's really tough. He's locked in for my doubleheader, and these, I don't know. I'm almost without words because it doesn't really make a lot of sense, the plays that have happened here. The missed freeze on defense, just a lot of stuff going wrong, and missing that mortar pickup, it doesn't really make sense.
Graveyard freeze into the left-hand side, doesn't get much for it. And now Dark Prince Skeleton Dragons, Graveyard into the left-hand side. Poison on defense for that, but poison on offense on the Musketeer as well.
And Código and Flash are going to do the right thing. You see that Musketeer set up in the back to help play defense and just chill. They do not need to do anything that even remotely resembles aggressive for the rest of this minute and 40. They just sit back, get spell damage when they can, throw in the Naked Graveyard when they're up in Elixir.
Aggressive push on the right-hand side, but Giant Skeleton more than up to the task. This is a decent freeze, but the log will clean that up enough that Dignitas is not too worried about that right-hand tower. Here we go, final minute 23:48 on the left-hand side, and going Graveyard one more time. Not quite in spell cycle range yet, Andrew, but very close.
Yeah, that double Graveyard drop there, I believe, with the help of the Snowball, should be enough to take it out. If not, there goes the poison. Código and Flash know it's already said and done. Wrapped up with the bow, 2 up and 2 down. Let's go, Dignitas. Rich, this is exactly what you were mentioning at the top of the match. Now that they've taken this 2v2 set handedly, easily, without any contest, does Dignitas just take this match now?
I mean, it all comes down to Ruben, in my opinion. Look, JP could get hot today. We've been waiting for IMJP to get hot on Team Queso's side. Team Queso's waiting for it. He's 2-4 in the season so far. Today could be the day that JP gets hot. But if JP doesn't get hot, and you guys can, and Dignitas can get through the King of the Hill lineup, the first 2, and get to Ruben quickly, man, I don't know. It gets difficult. Do I give Ruben the advantage over any player on Dig? Yes. But a best of 1, all you need is 1 good matchup, and you send the superstar back to the bench.
And I have to remind you guys, as we're taking a look at these replays, honestly, the replays in this game are just kind of tough to watch. You see this first one, the missed freeze, and I don't know if we'll get the missed mortar as well, but it's kind of just, adding insult to injury at this point, because these are plays that you don't make at 4K. Those are mistakes that you don't make when you're starting the game off, just because they don't make sense. Picking up a mortar and missing a freeze are just straight up mental mistakes that you hope not to see again from Team Queso. Back to what we were just talking about, the King of the Hill and the head-to-head in the 1v1. Let's talk a little bit about Bale, though. Bale on the other side of it, he's taken down Adrian 2-0, Igor 2-1, and Pedro 2-1 in his last 3 1v1 sets. So Dignitas is comfortable playing back up against the wall, must-win situations, and Bale, ever since their first match, has been delivering the way that Dig expected when they rostered him. Yes, Ruben has the advantage over everyone, but this kid is hot right now, Rich.
Yeah, it's interesting. Hard to evaluate Bale right now, because you look at 3 sets in a row and you look at those names and you go, oh, these are big names. But Pedro's been off of his game this season. Adrian's been off of his game for a couple of seasons, and Igor is not playing like Igor right now and hasn't really been since the summer. So if they do go to the 1v1, which is a good chance, this will be the biggest test for Bale. This will be the real test for Bale, and this will tell us a lot, not just about Bale, but about the three players I just mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then, the lineups most likely will be, I think, Flash, Bale, Código maybe feels like what they've gone with. They did work Lindsay in last match, and he almost picked up the sweep. So maybe Lindsay actually pops his head in again. And of course, for Team Queso, you can imagine it will be Kuchi, IMJP, and Ruben. About the order, do we go IMJP, then Ruben, then Kuchiku?
That's such a hard one, right? You give Ruben into the mix earlier, you run the risk of Ruben having to play all three games. In this situation, I like putting Ruben last and expecting the other two players to get at least 1 or 2 wins and have Ruben go out there for 1 rather than having to go through 3 potential snipes where you get him off the board.
All right, so let's take a look at our King of the Hill lineups here in just a second. IMJP needs to get it going today. I think you start with him. I like what you say about moving Ruben to the back end, but Kuchi maybe just because of his experience is actually going to field that instead. Ruben in the middle. Código, Lindsay, and Bale coming out on the other side. So Lindsay earning his spot back in the King of the Hill roster after taking out Diego B and Kevin R.A. last match.
This is why you and I both liked Código as fantasy picks this weekend, Andrew, not just because double duty and not just because of 2v2, but because he's appeared in every single King of the Hill and often gets the lead-off shot, meaning guaranteed a game.
Yeah, and his win percentage in King of the Hill has been really nice this season. If you go and you look at Código, he's sitting at 80%. That's great. What else do you want from a guy that's your 2v2 player?
Yeah, that's exactly what you need. A 4-1 and 2. I mean, he's more than carrying, of course, with that huge sweep to open up the season. So Código has been good in this set and going with Mortar Skeleton Barrel, probably one of the more popular decks right now in challenges. And of course, for those of you watching at home, Electro Spirit, Electro Giant, not going to be in the mix this weekend. So you'll be seeing, you won't be seeing the Expo with Electro Spirit at all today.
Yeah, our news, like we said, we didn't talk much about the Electro Giant's health buff because we haven't seen it in competitive yet. It still seems its win rates aren't anything to write home about. And in Electro Spirit bringing life back to Expo 2.9 in this current meta, I'm really excited to see where the Electro Spirit moves forward as it is brought into competitive play.
Yeah, they'll be very, very curious. And here we go, Mortar High, and the Barb Hut picks that up immediately. Very interesting that JP plays standing. I'm trying to remember if all of Team Queso plays standing. And wow, right into the poison. So much value given to JP in that one.
Yeah. This could be a really tough matchup. We'll have to see what Código does in single elixir, which he's only got 23 more seconds to turn up the heat, and he's actually down in damage. So this could be a really tough spot for him. There's just so many responses in IMJP's hand to all the best weapons in Código's arsenal.
To the right-hand side, you see just what Andrew was talking about. The Skeleton Barrel gets taken out a little bit early by the Mega Minion. E is behind to clean up the skeletons, though Musketeers should get some decent value in the right-hand lane.
Yeah, really nice placement of that Knight. Keeps the Muskie at 100% health. The Mortar is going to have to deal with these Barb Huts all game long. I don't know if Código is going to be able to actually ever get a Mortar lock.
What do you think about the Mortar High versus defensive Mortar in this situation? He's trying to sneak maybe a lock through, but as we get into double, is it maybe put one low and then try to support to get one high?
The problem with putting the one low is that his opponent's going to beat him in the spell cycle race, so I think Código's got to get really innovative here and figuring out a way to at least even up the tower damage before he can completely commit to these defensive mortars that you're seeing here. Yes, this is really going to help with the Barbarians, but the moment that IMJP is back in any sort of elixir advantage, he can just kind of poison out the rest of the game.
2132 right-hand side of 2007. Goblin Gang into the graveyard, and poison comes down a little bit later this time, so some okay defense, but with that, IMJP will take a fairly significant lead. Mortar to the left. Is there a catch in time? Yes, there is.
Yeah, the Barb Hut really, really frustrating there. Will miss here with the Skelly Barrel, but he's got that Barb Barrel locked and loaded, I'm sure.
And the Goblin Gang behind gave a ton of Barb Barrel value on top of it. You see what Código is going for here, Andrew, and that's one thing about this deck, is that you can put a lot of damage on the board very quickly, but that damage can be negated very, very easily in kind.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things about Mortar Bait is if it feels like your opponent's in the exact same cycle that your offense is in, you've got to figure out a way to disrupt that. And so Código is starting to figure out these ways to turn different pushes into getting that Bar Barrel out of cycle, getting that E-Wiz out of cycle, but it's just really tough here, man, because now Mortar is going to focus on that Barb Hut, but the second that Código gives him any value, he's just going to poison.
Knight Skeleton Barrel in E-Wiz high to work on the Skeleton Barrel. It will pop and maybe get a little bit on tower, and the Baby Dragon is not turned the wrong way. Fireball in, doesn't get the value that Código wanted.
And you see how much IMJP can overspend on that left-hand side, and he still is creating presence on the right because of the Barbarian, so Código's forced to switch lanes again. This is really, really frustrating to do with this Mortar deck because you don't have the ability to get like a minor plus on tower. You're solely relying on your Skeleton Barrels to create that presence.
Good fireball value on the right-hand side for the Dig 2v2 player, but 30 seconds left. Not much time to work. IMJP might be doing exactly what Queso needs, coming out getting the opening win here with 22 seconds left.
And I love what IMJP's doing also, because recognize, when's the last time he pulled the trigger on a graveyard? When's the last time it looked like he was in any sort of rush to create an offensive presence? He doesn't care because he's got the damage in the bag. Spell's gonna come down, or this presence, like look at this on the left-hand side, a massive push comes in.
And Código just gives a big sigh, knows that he could not break on through. JP locking it down, playing it clean, and getting the win to lead off King of the Hill for Team Queso.
You can't win the bridge battles with that Mortar deck against this deck that IMJP is running. It's very hard to defend the graveyard because anything you drop back behind your King Tower, since you don't have a Dark Goblin, it's going to walk within poison range. And of course, your Mortar being your other best option to get offense on the board is always going to be easily distracted by that Barbarian Hut. A very tough matchup here for Código. Yes, we've seen it go other ways online, but I think in this sense, that was like a 70-30 for IMJP.
Código drops his record in King of the Hill to 4-2. IMJP up to 3-4, both in King of the Hill and on the season overall. His 43% win rate currently tied with his same win rate from his opening season with Dignitas back in the fall of 2018.
Yeah, and so when you have this Mortar deck and you face off against other versions of Graveyard, you have a better chance of winning those bridge battles because you have so much single target DPS. But you throw in that Mega Minion, you throw in the E-Wiz to stun, plus all of those units doing splash damage. It's a really, really tough matchup. And what's interesting, Rich, is, and this is just kind of me on a tangential thought, because of this Skelly Barrel deck being so popular for so long, it feels like the meta has shifted a little bit. And honestly, I've been having more success going back to that old Mortar, Valkyrie, Miner, Poison version because of how much Poison is effective right now in the meta, because of how many people are running Graveyard. And that Valkyrie really helps with the splash damage of Recruits, Royal Hogs, and the tankage against something like a Mega Knight. So I'm wondering if we'll see that shift back. The Skelly Barrel deck doesn't seem to be working as much for me right now.
Yeah, it's the cascading effect of metas, of course. One card rises, adds to another card, and it continues to shift. It'll be curious to see what happens as we see the Electro Giant get buffed in the overall gameplay meta, and the Electro Spirit get be mixed in more, especially with those, I believe, Electro Giant extended possible the whatchamacallit, the boost, the season boost.
Gotcha.
Yeah, with the boost being around for quite a long time, so we don't get to see that here in CRL yet. I'm very curious about it when it comes in, but we're already sort of seeing the effects of the overall gameplay meta as it comes into competitive as well.
Yeah, so Código's going to take a seat. IMJP doing what you and I think was completely necessary for Team Queso to pick up a win today, and that's him picking up a win in King of the Hill, letting Ruben sit back for at least one more game, or Kuchi. So IMJP still standing, literally and figuratively, and now Lince coming up next after a really nice performance in his last match.
Yeah, Lince came out last match, got a pair of wins, a huge pair of wins over Diego B and Kevin, and that sent it all the way down eventually to game number 5, King of the Hill, where Código beat Pompeo, and Bale was able to come out 2-0 on top of Adrian, and that's why Dignitas is 3-1. So a big, big vote of confidence for Lince, who had been struggling a bit at this point through the season until last weekend.
Yeah, and that was really, really important for Dignitas to have that happen. It's so important to have your fourth guy come in and actually become a threat to your opponents because it makes it that much harder for you to game plan against.
Lava Hound for Lince, Dark Prince on the left-hand side, pulled in by the Fisherman. First 50 seconds away, and the first real significant damage from those Royal Recruits. Andrew, it's so interesting how with Royal Recruits, you know, you really think more about the 4 side a lot of the time if they do go with the 4-2 split. But even 1 or 2 recruits get away and get on your tower, you can see the result.
Yeah, there's something so oddly inviting about letting your recruits just make it. Like, you feel like just 2 recruits coming to your tower isn't going to do a lot of damage, so you'll see them get ignored a lot of the time. But just a couple recruits ignored on either side for maybe 2 Royal Recruit splits, all of a sudden you find yourself in trouble. So 1697 on that top right because of exactly what you and I are talking about.
Passing the midway point of regulation time, JP in the lead. Playing for the 3rd team of his Clash Royale League career, opened up his CRL with Dignitas back in the EU region. Then took a season off, ended up with Kick's team in CRL Asia for a season, and then now here with Team Queso. So a lot of real estate, a lot of miles traveled for the golden-haired Golden Boy.
You know, and if now we want to talk about matchup once again, Lince does seem to have a favorable advantage here. He's got Fireball, he's got splash damage in there with the Dark Prince, and of course being able to pull things in with the Goblin Cage. And IMJP is going to have a difficult time getting through to that flying machine. The thing is that Lince right now is really letting IMJP control the pace of the game. Let's see if the Lava Hound here on the right-hand side can change that. And
there you go, straight Fireball into the flying machine, no risks with trying to get value on the tower as well. Just wanted that one off the board, even 4-4, and whoa, that's a huge one.
That's a nice Fireball, but the problem is the Fireball actually pushed the Hunter away from the Miner, which was the target that Lince was going for. So I really liked what he had in store, what he had planned there. It just didn't actually work out the way he'd like.
Baby Dragon to pick up the Magic Archer and not let any geometry get on that Princess Tower on the right-hand side. As we go into sudden death overtime, the lead still held by JP, but as my co-caster was saying, not by as much after that Fireball maybe didn't do the job it wanted.
Yeah, really nice Heal Spirit from IMJP. Keeps that Magic Archer alive, then forces out the high Fireball from Lince, which you see 468 on the tower. Fisherman going right on through. IMJP staying very aggressive, which is what he needs to do, because now the Goblin Cage is out of cycle, and the Hog should be back in soon.
4-2 split in front of the Hunter this time, trying to clog a bit and catch a Miner if it comes in, but not going to happen. And this is a much better Fireball. Does not get the Magic Archer off the board, which Lince really would have liked. And so now JP able to set up a much more powerful defense and should protect this Magic Archer. There you go with the Fireball.
Yeah, pick your poison type thing. Do you go for the Hunter that's on the Lava Hound, or you go for the Magic Archer that's maybe more problem down the road? And Lince decides to go with the Lava Hound, but then Magic Archer was there. Look at that geometry, not going to work because of the Fisherman.
Just slightly off here. Dark Prince has to get picked up high by IMJP. Final minute of sudden death overtime, 3:24 remains. Fireball cycle starts to come in, 152 on the right-hand side. JP just has to play defense and get back around one more time.
Yeah, Log should be coming out now, but there's the Fireball. He skips the Log, goes to the Heal Spirit. IMJP takes 2 in a row. This is exactly what Dignitas wanted to avoid.
Yeah, I mean, this is huge. This is absolutely huge. JP now even on the season at 4-4, back to a 50% win rate as well. And you can see JP pumped up right there. Has not really had the success he was looking for so far this season, and coming up huge with their team down a set. Massive for both the Cheesy Ones and JP himself.
Yeah, it's been a struggle for IMJP. You know, this season and last season, 25% last season, 50% this season in head-to-head win rate, bringing his overall record to 44%. But this is exactly the turnaround we need. His sample size over the last 2 seasons is pretty small in consideration. You talk about the games he's played, but these are the things that Queso signed him for, picking up big wins in King of the Hill.
Well, you needed someone to take a little bit of pressure off of Ruben, and you see JP, no risk there, and that's actually a big difference for IMJP, the Fireball the opposite direction that you were talking about, pushing the Hunter away. So that whole exchange that we just watched on replay, Andrew, really big for JP. And the thing I wanted to know, you pointed out that Fireball, how it didn't do what Lince wanted. I'm more impressed by JP not going for damage and just making sure that flying machine was off the board. because it seems like that's out of character for JP, who we've talked about being more of a home run hitter rather than a guy who goes for a couple of small shots to get closer to the finish line.
Yeah, and he did that a handful of times in these games where he decided to sit back and play patiently. I mean, the first game was such a great example of going, I've got a win condition in Graveyard, and I can overwhelm him, and I could probably pull the trigger here and there and maybe take the tower. But I 100% will win if I just sit back, get those barb huts on the board, cycle graveyards if I have a moment, but more it's going to be about the spell power and playing defense. So in both games 1 and game 2, JP being really, really great at practicing his patience, which is a really scary thing. You talk about a home run hitter that's going to wait for the perfect pitch. That's JP.
Yeah, it's so interesting. We've talked about his boom or bust gameplay style, and today maybe that's the thing they've been focusing on. Well, I'd be curious to see if the coaches or the team has any comment on that after the matches are over today, but maybe focusing more on patience and just playing clean, controlling Clash Royale rather than going for the big flashy moves is a thing they've done to adjust to get JP playing at the level he knows he can hit.
So now Dignitas is in a really, really tough spot. They got to take down JP, Ruben, and Kuchiku 1, 2, 3, and then go back and win a best 2 of 3 against Ruben. It feels like the tides have drastically changed over the last couple games.
Yeah, I mean, look, at this point, do I think Bale's going to reverse sweep King of the Hill here? Probably not. It's very unlikely. Is it possible? Yes. If I'm Bale, I don't put much stock in this King of the Hill. I play it best that I can. Just play some good Clash Royale, but don't take any of it to heart. Don't let it stress me out. And really, I think he might already be focused on that 1v1 set.
I think that's a really, really important thing to focus on, and I really hope that his coaches can echo that sentiment to him. Go out and have fun in this King of the Hill. We don't expect you to win 3 in a row. If you do, holy moly, thank you so much. But let's...
Skeleton Barrel into the right-hand side. Double bait for Bale. And JP going back to Graveyard one more time. Andrew, we saw how Skeleton Barrel Mortar fared against this Graveyard deck in game number 1. Very curious to see if there's a similar tune here in game number 3 for JP. So no barb hut on the late end. Here we go. Now cycle down for JP. Fireball in to take care of the E-Wiz on the left-hand side. First 90 seconds away. And so far, Bale with the lead. Does have a few different ways to control the double bait play of Bale between the Barb Hut, the E-Wiz, and of course the Barbarian Barrel. He's going to choose to go ahead and most likely E-Wiz or Barb Barrel here. No, goes with a completely different setup, maybe trying to go for a Graveyard push on the counter here, recognizing that his opponent had some of his control at the bridge out of cycles. And here we go, Baby Dragon across. Gonna have to do something about this Barb Barrel, but a healthy Baby Dragon now on tower the opposite direction. Or the Goblin Barrel, excuse me. So instead of turning it into a counter push, just goes ahead and gets some damage on that side, doesn't really take control of the Goblin Barrel, and now just like that, Bale's in the lead.
All right, there. Sorry, some technical difficulties. I am here. I'm very excited to see this double bait deck back again. We did see it with Royal Ghost last week, or a different version of bait, but this was pretty popular last season.
Yeah, I mean, double bait, obviously, both in 2v2 and v1, very, very popular. The Royal Ghost one we saw last week, I believe from Diego B, looked super fun. You were excited about it.
Yeah, I definitely tried it out. It was harder than he made it look, but it was still a lot of fun.
High Barb Hut here, and this is swung kind of dramatically, Andrew, towards Bale as time has gone on.
Yeah, you know, I mean, JP here has a good amount of responses, but with the Barb Barrel, and you get those tricky Goblin Barrels coming out, he has missed that one Goblin a couple times, and that doesn't bring that damage in.
Skeleton Barrel in, E-Wiz to help pop that high, so now should have the Barb Barrel back and ready, but goes straight on the middle, and once again, the solo Goblin and a ton of Fireball value for Bale at the bridge.
Yeah, that's really, really nicely played by Bale, getting in JP's head with those Goblin Barrels. You really want to not have to pay extra attention to it, but Bale's doing exactly what you have to do with log bait or any really form of bait, and that's win the mental battle. So now he goes to the back, knowing that it wasn't back in cycle, gonna bait out a different card.
So we'll see if this turns into a graveyard push, and it does. Baby Dragon gets across, but no, it's the E-Wiz tanking rather than the Baby Dragon, so not the exact sequence that JP was looking for. Baby Dragon, though, still alive at the moment, and that graveyard does a ton of damage, Andrew. We are almost all square in the final minute of gameplay.
Yeah, Bale got too aggressive there, cycling his Dark Goblin. Now you can cycle it because Graveyard was just used, but the Dark Goblin's the best response to your opponent's Graveyard. It can play far away, can stay out of the poison for just a second longer, so that was a moment where Bale got too aggro with his best response, and now doing it again, will it get taken off the board?
And double drop on units here right now. JP trying to find a way to build up for one more big graveyard push. Bale setting the line high with the Bomb Tower high, and then look at that, the Dark Goblin low. Poison gets all the way back. E-Wiz trying to play some defense. 285 on the left-hand side. Things getting very close here in the final 20.
2 Goblin stabs coming in. 285 in, just needs a Fireball plus log. He goes with the Barrel instead. Barrel gets logged off, or bar barreled off. This is insanely close, Rich. I believe IMJP is going to take it.
Wow! I am JP, king of the hill sweep. The Vamos comes out for the golden-haired golden boy from Barcelona, Spain. And Andrew, this is what we were talking about. Team Queso needed this. Totally changes the whole picture for the cheesy ones.
What a tough game to lose, because that's a tilting game. You see yourself really getting in the lead. You see yourself catching your opponent out of cycle, playing very, very well, but then just that one moment of the shift. When you're playing bait, when you're playing those cheap decks, you can feel it shifting out of your control. IMJP found his opening and stayed relentless with those graveyards.
Yeah, it was, and shifting the way he played defense going, we saw a few times throughout this game, knowing he needed to go for troop defense rather than spell defense, rather than using that barrel, he had to use something, I believe the last one that we saw was the Knight and the Mega Minion to clean up on a Goblin Barrel to create the opportunity to push the opposite direction.
And the problem with that too is the Knight's hanging way in the back. It's just really, really tough there. So this is one of the pushes where Bale was really starting to feel the heat. You saw that Knight in the front, Skeletons in the back. There's a couple exchanges there where the Baby Dragon was getting really, really close, but really excellent bomb tower placement from Bale to help assist taking those off the board. But IMJP could just not be stopped. This bridge battle right here, that bar barrel coming in was really, really nice. You see the Goblin Barrel coming out in response, looking to take the W, but the E-Wiz comes in on that right-hand side. Maybe would have been better to actually drop a regular Goblin Barrel there.
Yeah, that's so fascinating, Andrew, to know that you have a Goblin Barrel coming in, but instead go bar barrel offensive to support the push and create the opening needed to steal this win away. You know, we talked about the patience from JP throughout the first 2 games, sort of the creativity and the risk-taking from JP paying off here in game number 3 to secure the sweep.
Yeah, and I like that decision-making. I like that he went for the bar barrel on top of that Dark Goblin, because the Dark Goblin's the biggest threat, whether it's on the back and you have to poison it out, or whether it's up front holding the line for his opponent at the river. Once that Dark Goblin's off the board, there's just not enough DPS to win those bridge battles or to clean up the Skeletons on a graveyard. So really, really great recognition there from IMJP, picking and choosing how exactly he wanted to take down his opponent. And now, can Bale do what you just said? Does he have the mental fortitude? Because he looked pretty upset at the end of that loss in King of the Hill, which, again, I think he should have just went into it going, whatever happens, happens. I'm focused on the 1v1. This is the set that I need to win. Do you think he's tilted right now going up against Ruben?
Maybe. I mean, we could see him on the camera. He was not looking good, and now he goes up against one of the best in the entire world. You know, people talk about Ruben and Mugi as number 1 and number 2 competitively right now. Well, you got one of them right in front of you for a best of 3. I think that from what we just saw, Andrew, from his emotional state, take 5% and swing that over towards Ruben now in terms of who you give the advantage.
Yeah, I mean, we already felt that Ruben had the advantage in this set just because of how well he's been playing. He's a little bit more seasoned. He's played against the best in the world and proved that he is S+ tier. I think that the pressure here for Bale isn't going to be that big of a factor. I just think he might get outplayed. I think they've got to do exactly what you were saying, and they've got to out-analyze Team Queso, which is a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you get Ruben in the King of the Hill, you just go for a huge snipe. in a best of 3 set. I don't know. I don't think that strategy necessarily works here. It's not like you have a one and done swing for the fences opportunity. You have to beat him twice. Maybe you can pull that off one time. I don't know if you can pull it off 2 times. So it's going to be a very, very difficult uphill task for what we assume is going to be Bale versus Ruben.
In my mind, and I'm gonna do like a throwback to a deck. In my mind, the best type of deck for Bale to run would be that Heal Spirit Royal Giant control deck of the past. I don't know exactly what that will be in this meta, but essentially what I'm thinking is something that has a lot of firepower, but also has very, very strong defense that you can get those positive elixir trades out of to drop that heavy hitting win condition back on the board. I think if you try to go high cycle and outplay ability against Ruben, you're gonna lose. So I immediately seeing this Barb Hut out of Bale, I like what I'm seeing.
And I really love seeing the Royal Ghost out of Ruben. You know, we haven't seen as much Royal Ghost as we thought we would here in CRL since the change to the hover mechanic, but seeing the Royal Ghost get in here, I'm excited to see what kind of creative moments Ruben pulls out against Bale.
Yeah, Ruben with the Hunter, Heal Spirit, and Royal Ghost fielded. A lot of good damage.
Poison down to support these Barbarians offensively, get the Hunter off the board, and put a little bit more damage on the tower. Not a whole lot there. 2350 remains in the left-hand lane. First blood drawn by Bale, and Ruben cycles Ghost to the right-hand lane.
Yeah, Bale holding for a second there to decide what he wanted to cycle.
Ruben just goes ahead, sets up Ewiz in the back. Ruben is tied with OP Sam for the best record on the season, currently at 14-3. But he does have by far the best record in head-to-head play at that same 14-3.
Yeah, Sam is definitely in my lineup this week as well. He's been playing just incredible this season. And I believe, oh, no, Fisherman's going to do a nice pull there. Heal Spirit comes down just to ensure it.
First minute, 40 seconds away. So far, no significant damage either direction. A very slow game to start with here in this best of 3.
Nice little sneaky bar barrel there from Ruben. I wonder if it came down a half of a second later, if it would have been completely ignored by the Barbarian, but still getting that hut off the board was the goal. Nice pull there for this Musketeer.
Yeah, and yeah, very, very nice there for the Fisherman. Musketeer goes away, and boom, RG goes to the right-hand lane.
Yeah, almost looking into the future there. I don't even know if Bale knew he was going to play the Musketeer yet, but Ruben was ready for it.
And the Ghost does help get the Barb Hut off the board and opens up for one shot on the Royal Giant on the right-hand side. Just like that, Team Queso's Star takes the lead 21-08 to 23-50.
Yeah, a really fantastic fireball there from Ruben to clean everything off the board, get a little bit more spell damage in, but most importantly, it was about the elixir that he kind of got back from that moment.
And look at that extra damage on the left-hand side. So right now, the pressure from Ruben starting to maybe make some openings on Bale's defensive side.
Yeah, the Fisherman is one of those cards that you feel like you can just ignore, like we were saying about like 2 Royal Recruits, but that Fisherman comes in completely uncontested, and he'll do a good amount of damage with those fish slaps.
First graveyard push in for Bale, and does take the lead back, but a lot on the board right now for Ruben. Barb Hut in response to that left-hand lane pressure.
And Rich, not to toot my own horn, but this is kind of what I was talking about with Bale, was a very, very high defensive deck with a very strong win condition in the graveyard. So you can see here, he doesn't have the Barb Barrel ready to go, and that's going to cost him a lot.
Oh, and the Heal Spirit evaporates on the side of Bale. That's going to be a GG well played. Ruben takes game number 1. Bale just threw the Heal Spirit right into a mess that was already a huge problem.
I mean, the play of Ruben is so incredibly fascinating, and it started with that first Musketeer getting pulled. He's just playing a different game. You look at what he's doing in that whole entire game. First of all, his towers feel like they were untouched. Yes, the one on the bottom left-hand side took a good amount of a beating from that one graveyard. But for the most part, it felt like that entire 3.5 minutes that we'd watched was all about Ruben setting up Bale to fail. Small interaction mistakes here, good fireball value there, dealing with the graveyard here. All of a sudden, your tower's just gone by one great Royal Giant push with a Barb Hut completely out of cycle, which is the one thing Bale could not do, and that was not keep his Barb Huts in cycle or on the board for these Royal Giants.
The Royal Ghost creates such a frustrating wrinkle in this deck, Andrew, because you saw consistently the Royal Ghost, Royal Giant push, the Royal push on the right-hand side. And you have to control the Royal Ghost and deal with stopping that Royal Giant damage. And it just seemed like trying to do both of those at once was too much for Bale.
Yeah, and also the heal spirit work from Ruben, whether it was just early on with that Musketeer pull, keeping those 2 units on the board. I believe it was a Fisherman and a Hunter, keeping them alive, taking the Fisherman off, or taking the Muskie off and then them splitting. Or if it was that very last heal spirit coming in to kind of throw that nail in the coffin. Just excellent top of the line interactions from Ruben. And that's what you expect. And this is more or less what we expected out of Bale. I still think he's going to put up a good fight. I can see him taking down a game here from Ruben, but I don't know, man. It almost felt like apples and oranges in spite of how well Bale's been playing coming into this 1v1.
Well, we talked about popular picks for Fantasy Royale this weekend, and 2 popular picks were Bale and Kuchiku. And, we talked already about why I didn't think Kuchiku was the greatest pick. And we're looking at why I also left Bale off of my lineup, and it's not because Bale hasn't been great so far. It's that if we get to the 1v1, which we have today, Bale ends up in a really difficult spot against Ruben. And then with Pain Gaming coming up tomorrow, no matter who his matchup is in the 1v1, it's going to be a tough one there as well.
And an important thing also to point out is that they've never done it in 2 sets. They've always gone the distance. So taking those things into account when you're setting your fantasy lineup is really, really important. So if you did set Bale in your lineup, let's see if he can bounce back here in game number 2 against Ruben, who has just been getting those crowns, stacking them all season long.
Skeleton Barrel in for Bale on the left-hand side. Snowball Archers to clean up by Ruben, so looking like it might be Mortar Skelly Barrel from Bale. Ruben looking like Graveyard potentially. And that's a very aggressive push on the right-hand side, Andrew.
Yeah, I don't know what Bale was thinking Ruben had. I don't know. It just seemed kind of ill-advised there.
So triple spell for Ruben.
Triple spell with Barb Hut, gonna make this bait deck really, really tough to find any success.
Yeah, it almost feels like we were talking about Dig wanting to try to snipe against Ruben. Well, it feels like Ruben maybe have done the opposite direction.
And both times we've seen this Mortar Skelly Barrel deck run from Dignitas today, they've run into Barb Hut plus very bad matchup. Whether it was Codigo or now from Bale. Maybe just not the best deck to pull out against Team Queso.
Spear Goblins to the right-hand side as the first 80 seconds has passed. And Mortar down for Bale. Ruben controls that with a Knight.
And nice Skeleton Barrel there to catch the Baby Dragon, but maybe was actually looking for the Archers from Ruben. So the Baby Dragon here going to help clean up that Barrel plus Mortar.
Yeah, up here, I don't think that Ruben can get to this Musketeer in time. No, she's going to stay on the board, so we'll see if Ruben chooses to respond or maybe just a Snowball here. There you go.
Yeah.
Snowball does push her back out, so Ruben in pretty good control. And you talk about the cycle and making sure you always have the cards that you want. Having the triple spell here, the double small spell, does mean that Ruben, it's going to be hard to catch him out against the Skeleton Barrel or get a troop across the board like that because he can really rotate Snowball and Barb Barrel for dual purposes.
Yeah, and he's just going to hold them for the purposes that he wants them to be. The Barb Barrel is going to be for this, the Skeleton Barrel there, and then now the Snowball is going to be for whatever else he wants. Whether it's aggressive Spear Goblins, whether it's a Knight plus a gang, whatever it is, he's got the spell power for it.
And right there, you see it going for the Spear Goblins in the back, trying to open up a little bit more room for the Graveyard push on the right-hand side. 19-17 remains on Bale's right-hand tower. Goes with the Mortar to the left. Barb Hut picks it up.
I mean, you talk about matchups. The Barb Hut is always there to catch the Mortar. The triple spell is always there to deal with your bait. And then also, having that triple spell to deal with however you, as a Mortar player with this deck, want to defend the Graveyard. It's just a really tough spot to be in. There's no way to really defend that Graveyard without giving value.
And just like we saw from JP in that first King of the Hill matchup, Andrew, notice that Ruben, I believe, has only played the one Graveyard, so took a shot at it when he had a good moment to put some pressure down, but I suspect we'll see a not dissimilar approach to this one as well.
Yeah, you see there's snowball coming in the right-hand side, takes the spear goblins off the board, and gets a little bit more tower damage in.
Archers high with the knight tanking, so they can worry about that musketeer. Should go ahead and bar barrel the left-hand side. 1685 on the right-hand tower of Bale with 90 seconds left in sudden death.
There is actually no way for Bale to win this unless Ruben disconnects. Like, he's too good to allow him to make any connection with the mortar. He's got too many spells to ever get hit with his barrel, and then obviously still able to use that third spell for a little bit of tower damage if he needs.
And you see right there, able to play the snowball and the bar barrel in sequence to take care of that defense. So poison does come in on the left-hand side. We aren't that far behind, but that one connection on the right does extend the lead for Ruben.
Yeah, and Ruben's totally cool poisoning this stronger tower because he doesn't want to have to deal with the counter push. It's not actually about the damage on the tower, it's just about dealing with the counter push. So bar barrel goes high and in the middle now. Gonna have to use something else here. It goes poison on defense.
And he can get back to a snowball so easily, Andrew. Archers come in to help there. Doesn't even need the snowball, goes ahead and Baby Dragon takes care of business. 1529 to 1840. Gonna need a bit on the right-hand side. Does Ruben, but now forcing Bale to play some defense.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Ruben needed to do in this moment. Bale was actually getting dangerously close to having one bad play bounce his way, and then Ruben could all of a sudden be behind on damage. So that graveyard is gonna kind of ensure his victory at this point.
And this is going to be a big one. Team Queso looks like they will take control of second place on their doubleheader weekend, 4-1, with a big come-from-behind win over Dignitas. And it was 5 games in a row, the duo of IMJP and Ruben playing cleanup here for Queso.
Right now, he is just completely unstoppable. Your head-to-head star has to be playing out of their minds if they even want to compete with Ruben, and right now, no one seems to be able to do it.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. It's crazy how good he is right now, moving that record on the season up to 16-3. Didn't even get the sniff king of the hill this week. No problem. Go out clean 2-0 over the rookie. And look, Andrew, people were talking about what Bale did against those other teams. And we were talking earlier about how today might sort of be a better look at really where Bale is overall in the 1v1 rankings. And I think he kind of got a big lesson here from Ruben.
Yeah, right now it feels like maybe Javi and Ruben are the two guys to beat when it comes to head-to-head play. And I just don't know who's going to do it first. I want to see the two of them play each other.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a gem for us to watch. I mean, keep in mind, one other guy to look at in the mix, and we'll be seeing more of him later today, potentially, is St. Bellican, who's 2-0 and sets 4-0. Yeah.
Yeah, so, man.
That'll be compelling to see how that one starts to play out as these teams get in the mix. And, of course, when we get into the playoffs and we have those BO5s and we're seeing multiple 1v1 sets.
Yeah, and what I'm also very excited to see is when we do get into those BO5s, kind of like what happened with Tribe last season, is what happens when Ruben does just lose a set badly, right? Does he bounce back easily, or is he the type of person that gets affected by it? Tribe, it was kind of crazy to watch them go up 2 and then drop 3 in a row. Will that happen to a team like Queso, or is just Ruben too dialed right now? More to come on that later, but whew, I just can't imagine anyone beating him at this moment. I really can't. I just want to see it happen just to see that it is possible. But Team Queso right now 4-1, locked into that number 2 spot.
Well, there's one player, and he's already done it once this season. He did it last year as well. The kryptonite for Ruben is Javi. Yeah. And we've seen it happen we saw it in 2019. We saw it happen so far this season, and it's looking more and more like we might see that showdown again in the playoffs.
So next up, it's going to be Team Liquid facing off against Tribe Gaming. Both squads kind of on a bit of a losing streak right now, although Team Liquid's is much more detrimental when you talk about playoff hopes and the playoff picture. Tribe, though, needing to bounce back after a couple rough ones.
Yeah, I mean, Tribe 3-2 on the season now. Those were rough ones. They were hard ones, but we'll see if they can get back in it here against Team Liquid. We'll be back in 5 minutes with our second matchup of the day. Welcome back, and we are ready now for our second matchup of the day. And appropriate, we're seeing shots of London because we do have a Brit in the mix. Buffmac for Tribe Gaming going up against his former squad of Team Liquid. Andrew, in the past, we've seen Buffmac bench during King of the Hill against Team Liquid, against his former team. Do you think the same thing happens today when we do go to the King of the Hill set?
I would hope not. I think Buffmac's been in the league long enough. I think he's done enough, and I think he's been with Tribe for a very successful career, or part of his career. I feel like he should be above that at this point. I think if he goes up against Team Liquid, their roster has also changed a bit from when he was there. I think it's a good thing for him to come out, play that 2v2, and also come out in King of the Hill, because we expect Buffmac to be in head-to-head play if he can be. Why bench one of the best in the world if he can be out there? I don't think that mental should get to him anymore, but I don't actually know 100%.
On the other side of it, Andrew, we have the big question of 2v2 for Team Liquid. They started with Razor and Canario, didn't work. Went to Razor and Surgical Goblin, didn't work. If you're Team Liquid, what do you do about 2v2?
Man, I think honestly, maybe go back to Surgical and Canario. I think maybe just to try it out and see if that works again. Nothing else has been working, so why not try anything other than what hasn't been working? And then lastly, you get Igor in the 1v1 set. I know they tried to do something a little bit different last week. I know Canario maybe wanted blood, but you got to have Igor in that final set. He still played great in their last match. He almost gets the King of the Hill sweep. He's your head-to-head guy. You got to stick with him.
Yeah, I think there are some questions there, of course, on the decision-making process to put Canario in there. We'll see what kind of lineup they come out with for 2v2. Can Team Liquid begin to resurrect their season, or is this the end? Let's jump into it. Tribe Gaming, Team Liquid coming your way.
Tribe Gaming and Team Liquid, so much talent on both squads, but Tribe has really been able to put it together this season. Can Team Liquid finally find their second win?
Team Liquid contra a Tribe Gaming. A Team Liquid não teve bom resultado contra a PEN e a Tribe também não encontrou vitória. Vai ser partidão, mas eu acho que ainda vai dar Tribe.
Liquid needs to win this one and pretty much all the rest to be relevant in the playoff picture. Tribe Gaming wants to lock this one down if they're not going to have another season where they underperform their high expectations. So a big-time matchup, a marquee matchup. Team Liquid backs to the wall, currently 1-4 on the season. Need the win today. Tribe Gaming now lost 2 in a row, Andrew. This feels like the day they have to get back on track.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about Liquid being in 8th place with this many matches in the book, but Razor, Igor, Canario, and Surgical Goblin looking to right their season's wrongs in this big matchup against Tribe Gaming, who has been a little bit of, I guess, on the struggle bus the last 2 matches.
It's been curious to see where Tribe Gaming has stumbled as of late, and of course, no shame in those 2 matches, losing to the undefeated SK. Of course, a 5-0 sweep, no one wants to see that, and then their loss against Cream Royale. Betis, let's take a look at the lineup for today. For Tribe Gaming, the 2v2 duo of Azealis and Buffmac had been pretty much phenomenal, pretty much perfect, and then ran into Morton and Salmon. After that, another struggle, a win over Diego E and Michifu. Can they do it today against the opening with Team Liquid? Jupiter King and TNT rounding out the head-to-head play for Tribe. The expectations for this team are still very, very high, Andrew, despite the 2-match skid.
So here we go, Razor and Canario with the Band of Fishermen coming out, and Razor looking, you know, pretty intense today. He knows that a lot is on the line. Buffmac and Azealis coming out for Tribe, no surprise there with the ban of Tornado. I mean, we say it every single match, but this really does feel like it's more about the 2v2 than normal, just because Azealis and Buffmac should win this set. They've only lost against Morton and Sam and RF and AC. So Buffmac and Azealis, it's really important that they win this set to show that they are still a top-tier duo, not that they're just going to be taken down by any great duo put together. Canario and Razor, though, may not be that great duo, as we've only seen them come out once this season with not a lot of success.
You know, Andrew, I think the most important question might be whose hair has been checked more during this opening sequence. We've seen Razor go ahead and give the quick check on the golden locks, and Buffmac make sure the bouffant is perfectly placed. So we'll go ahead into the battle of the best hair. 2v2, Canario and Razor for Team Liquid, Buffmac and Azealis for Tribe Gaming. Liquid needing to essentially win out to stay relevant this season, and it starts right here.
Just to clarify, this is the third time we'll be seeing Razor and Canario together. The first two matches against Cream and Chivas, they started off 2-4 in this set.
So Royal Ghost making its way into the 2v2 here for Team Liquid. Battle Healer high for Tribe Gaming.
Yeah, I like the Royal Ghost in 2v2. I like the tankage, I like the splash. A lot of fireball value there, but Mega Knight's still up front, relatively healthy and completely uncontested. Is that balloon just cruising on through to the tower?
Well, you saw the E-Wiz in the hand of Azealis, and he was exceptionally low on Elixir, so he had to wait till he hit 4 to get it down, and E-Wiz does come out at the last second. Saves what could have been a lot more damage, but still the big one in. 1464 remains on the right-hand side. Team Liquid with the advantage as we approach halfway through regulation.
Yeah, Buffmac and Azealis got a little bit back there in that final moments of that exchange, but Team Liquid off to the lead.
Real Ghost again pressuring, and notice how Razor is playing that right at the bridge, forcing out a response, and that might be the idea with this Royal Ghost, Andrew, is just force responses out of Tribe Gaming that they don't want to play, and in places where they might not want to play them.
Yeah, well, it usually demands your opponent to overspend. You see right here, he has to drop, or they have to drop that giant skeleton down, and then they don't want to leave that giant skeleton completely unsupported, so they drop in the baby dragon as well because they hit 10, and they don't really know how they want to orchestrate their push because Razor and Canario forced that out.
Battle Healer setting the line against the Graveyard, so Princess Tower able to work on defense easily with the Lumberjack and Baby Dragon, and now Buffmac and Azealis is going to have a decent opportunity for a counter push, but because of that giant skeleton, they decide to switch lanes here, setting up Battle Healer to the left.
Yeah, that's a good idea. They're having to deal with the giant skeleton, so they switch lanes. They don't have to commit to that right-hand tower. Yes, it does have good damage on it, but it's not an insane amount of damage that they can't get back pretty quickly.
Royal Giant into the right-hand side. A very low bomb tower does end up pulling, though. So Royal Giant going in on the bomb tower left-hand side. Royal Giant Graveyard. So this is the second sort of mix-up we've seen this season of two different archetypes. We saw the Balloon GY Freeze, and now we're seeing Royal Giant Graveyard out of Tribe Gaming.
Yeah, and I like it. I like the idea. I mean, it's still the same idea of the balloon, except for now it makes dealing right at the line of the bridge and then all the way back in the back by your tower. Whereas the balloon, you can start to kind of muddle that line by dropping units in between both and helping. It's like the E-Wiz in the middle on the path there will help with the balloon on the front end and the skeletons on the back.
Entering sudden death overtime, slight lead right now for Tribe Gaming, but not a significant one. And whether you're doing the Balloon Graveyard for Team Liquid or the RG Graveyard for Tribe Gaming, this could end in a heartbeat.
The one tough thing here is that Royal Giant being on the ground is going to suffer a lot more from that giant skeleton bomb because it gets caught up in the lane. Whereas right here you see the balloon goes on its own path, so it will move past sometimes a giant skeleton bomb if it's up front.
High freeze on offense, Snowball trying to make room. The balloon should connect, and it does! Team Liquid takes game number 1.
That's big there. You see the smile out of Razor. Perfectly timed freeze. Nothing on that balloon. And this is a little bit about what I was speaking on right as that happened, is the balloon is much harder to control than the Royal Giant. The Royal Giant, you can set the line right at the bridge. You can drop the building, keep it in place. The balloon can get pushed around. And you saw with that perfectly timed freeze, the balloon cruises past all the defense and gets that big drop.
We'll go ahead and take a look at the replay for that one in just a moment, but Razor getting himself back in the winner's column, and with that win, his 60th career in 2v2 moves him back into second place on the all-time 2v2 wins record, one more than Morton of SK Gaming.
This was big for Liquid. They started off in the lead, they maintained the lead, and they took a nice win there with that balloon coming in. This is what they need to do. This is exactly how Canario and Razor need to feel when playing with each other. It seemed like they had good communication this time. They played strong defense. They didn't have a lot of double drops. You know, there was the one instance when they had to deal with something up high at the bridge. They played skeletons and a heal spirit. That's fine. It's 2 elixir, and it was well defended. So good things here from Canario and Razor.
Well, Andrew, part of why this freeze is so effective, you can see the Mega Knight had leapt deep into enemy territory and was taking the aggression from the shots from the Princess Tower. So you can see no damage getting in on that balloon on the right-hand side. So a very good recognition by Team Liquid to realize there was not just a big bridge battle going, but that the Princess Tower was distracted and wasn't going to switch to the balloon during that entire push.
Yeah, they were doing a good job of setting the line beforehand, but somehow that Mega Knight just leaps right on through, and they see, okay, this is the opportunity to send in the balloon. Let's hold the freeze for the last second. And they did that. They did exactly that. The Baby Dragon was also focused on the Mega Knight, and that freeze came in, and the Baby Dragon, instead of turning towards the balloon because the freeze was there, it stayed on the Mega Knight because the balloon had already passed it. And again, that's something we were talking about with the Royal Giant. Very, very difficult to accomplish that in the same way.
Yeah, absolutely huge, and that's a big-time win. Of course, if Team Liquid can take the 2v2, that would be very, very big.
Whoa.
I think they really haven't done, and wow.
A missed, I believe he was trying to play a building, but he throws a fireball down center of the map, hits absolutely nothing. They have to quadruple overspend on defense on the right-hand side, and their opponents get a massive, massive early hit here.
We joined that a half step late, Andrew. I see the freeze is out from Razor and Canario. I didn't see where it got played.
Well, it got played on the tower, I believe. I think I missed maybe that as well, but what I did see was the fireball coming out, and it was just right in the middle of the map for Buffmac and Azilius. Had to have been a defensive building that he thought he had selected.
I'm very curious about what happened to those opening moments as we joined the game a half step late. You know, it might have been that a player might have accepted game early there, so we'll find out if there was a penalty to be assessed or not.
So here we go, Hog Rider in right behind that giant skeleton. There is the Inferno Tower, which was probably what they were looking for. Earthquake comes down, and this is going to be a tough one for Tribes, Buffmac, and Azilius.
Yeah, very curious about what happened there in the opening moments. I'm sure we'll hear from Buffmac or Azilius about that misplay there at the beginning, and this feels like this is going to be a runaway game here for Team Liquid.
Yeah, a runaway game and a runaway set, which is what they needed here against Tribe. And if Tribe ends up dropping this set, it's going to be really interesting. They'd be looking at facing maybe 3 losses in a row as things really feel to even out after the 2v2 set.
Royal Giant Graveyard into the right-hand side, Battle Healer in front, a lot to spend on offense here. Let's see if they can get anything from it.
Yeah, perfectly defended there. Lumberjack up high, Royal Giant doesn't get a shot. Poison down low, 69 HP remains. They're just going to throw a little bit of spell value in there. Don't even hit the E-Wiz, does not matter.
So pretty even on Elixir, except for the Royal Ghost on the board right now. Going to be surprising to see if Tribe Gaming can battle back in this one. Of course, a fireball to nowhere early on will certainly make that an even more difficult journey.
Yeah, and with 30 seconds remaining, they've got to get another Royal Giant push that's supported with a Battle Healer healing it, maybe a Graveyard dropped on the back end, and there just isn't enough way or enough Elixir to get all that down in the next 20 seconds, as you can see here. No Royal Giant, just going to go with the Graveyard. Nothing even crosses the river. Royal Giant comes in late, and even if this Royal Giant was uncontested, it still would not have enough time to take this tower. Really, really well done by Team Liquid, but kind of a gimme there in game number 2 with an early throw from Tribe.
Yeah, I am, again, like I'm really curious to see, you know, if someone comments on Twitter, if one of these players comes out and says what happened there in that opening moment, if it was just I mean,
all I think it was
building.
just that the building, you and I were a little distracted as we were pitching the game, and I think they started it off with an aggressive Hog Rider push. They missed the fireball, and then they decided to double down on the Hog Rider push with the freeze because they knew their opponents were out.
Very, very strange. Yeah, you do look at Buffmac's hand where the fireball came out, and he did have the Inferno Tower as well, so maybe that's what he was going for. Who knows? Rough one. That is not the way you want to lose this 2v2 set, Andrew.
No, it's really not, and they've been very back and forth. There it is. You see, very early on, Snowball comes in to help take off the Heal Spirit plus most of the bats, then the freeze comes in late, and that Hog Rider just goes to town on that tower, all because, as you see, the very first card played is a Snowball in the top right-hand side of your screen. You can see in the hand of Buffmac, and it's just a misplay. It happens to all of us. He thought he had the Inferno Tower selected. It was the Fireball. 4 elixir wasted instead of 5 spent to defend, and from that moment on, there's no way to actually take that game back, especially because their opponents already had the Earthquake, Snowball, Fireball, Poison, Log, all of the spells ever to help assist that Hog Rider, but they really didn't need it moving forward.
Yeah, I mean that's a brutal way for that loss to go down. So, not the way anyone thought that the 2v2 was going to go. It felt like it was going to be a Buffmac Azilius runaway. Game number 1, very well played by Team Liquid. Game number 2, you just got to have to regroup. And now here's my question: since Buffmac made that misplay, do you think maybe he does get sat for King of the Hill and they bring out Azilius here?
I mean, maybe yes now. Maybe he is tilted, and since that was the Fireball in his hand, it was solely on him to get that building down. It's a misplay, and since he hasn't played against Liquid in the past, maybe that really is the reason to take him out. But at some point, Buffmac will have a bad day and will need to play against a former team. And I think that this is a good opportunity to do it still. Team Liquid has still been struggling a bit as a team. 2v2, their worst set, but King of the Hill hasn't been their best by any means. And then you still get that 1v1 at the end where you imagine it will be Jupiter King going up against Igor, which feels like a reset for Tribe. I think that they have enough faith in Jupiter where they feel like he has a good matchup any day against anyone. So I don't know, very interesting. If he feels tilted, seed him. If not, I think you have to play him.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see if that is the way that they go. On the other side of it, Razor's been in and out of the King of the Hill lineup. With the way that he was clicking with Canario today, is this where you throw him back in?
Yeah, it's weird. You look at the numbers for Razor, and he actually hasn't picked up a win yet in King of the Hill. From a guy that was called the King Killer before, he's really been struggling in this set. Canario played really well in the last match, but he DC'd, and then he got dominated in the 1v1. So looks like they're actually going to go Razor and Canario. They're going to see the GOAT, Surgical Goblin, and Igor is going to close things out. TNT leading things off with Buffmac in the middle, who will play up against his former squad if necessary. Jupiter King to close things out for Tribe. Very interesting lineup here from Liquid.
Yeah, let's go ahead and jump on into our first game of King of the Hill. TNT and Razor to lead things off. And you talk about career King of the Hill performances. Both these guys way up there overall lifetime. TNT with a very, very solid 61%, 19-12 career in this set. 21-17 for Razor, but add in 4 King of the Hill sweeps for both players.
Hog Triple Spell has been very, very popular as of late, and that Earthquake is going to do wonders against the Barb Hut. However, how will Razor deal with these graveyard pushes as we get into double and triple? Archer's not a bad response.
Yeah, I mean, and this has been the more popular version of Hog Triple Spell as of late. The Archer's coming in for Musketeer, and partially because of the Musketeer's first shot being delayed, and this deck goes very fast, and partially with how popular Graveyard is. The Archers are just a little bit better on Graveyard. You have 2 of those girls rather than 1 big Musketeer. You mix that in with the Triple Spell, Andrew, and if he is playing Bomb Tower, it's not the greatest matchup on the universe, but Razor does have responses.
Yeah, and talk about an insanely fast cycle in comparison to his opponent here, with that Barb Hut being something that Razor is going to Earthquake every time it comes down.
2006 on the left-hand lane to 2084 on the right-hand side, in the past and in the future. Crosswise on the towers, and there you go, first Graveyard push in. Baby Dragon not tanking.
Yeah, Baby Dragon not tanking. Really, really nice skeletons on the back end, and an aggressive Hog Rider that will get 1 hit here. Good way for Razor to keep this single elixir in his favor.
Second set of Archers comes down and cleans up on the back end. As we go into double elixir time, slight lead right now for Razor, who, if he can get 1 or 2 King of the Hill wins, you see a smile from him right now as he's chatting with somebody. If he get a couple King of the Hill wins here, this would be big, not just for him, but for Team Liquid's confidence in their offseason signing.
The one thing that's going to be really tough for Razor as we move forward in this game is that he's going to have a hard time setting that line at the bridge, just because there is so little DPS on his side of the board other than those Archers.
The Baby Dragon Mega Minion combination feels like it's going to be a real challenge for him, Andrew, with not as much to hit the Baby Dragon in particular. And you see the first big Graveyard push on the left-hand side. Razor does still have the lead, but TNC starting to claw his way back in.
Yeah, and also that lead is almost a bit of a misnomer, because you see on the right-hand side, well, now the right-hand side is closer, but Razor doesn't want to continue to push in the left because he will allow TNT to get those counter pushes. So really that tower damage on the left almost becomes negligible if you're Razor because he's now playing on the right-hand side of this map.
Bomb tower down early for Razor, and that's going to be free poison value for TNT. Bomb tower all the way down, a lot done on that left-hand side, and now TNT has the high barb hut and the baby dragon. Archers have to come out in response.
Yeah, Archers really are going to be the hero of this game for Razor, but like we were saying, those Archers are going to have a very difficult time getting to these units behind, like the Mega Minion and the Baby Dragon.
13-10 on the right-hand side, but now a Graveyard Poison push in on the left for TNT. The South Korean putting a lot of pressure on, forces the snowball out. The triple spell does give a lot of defensive options, Andrew, for the American.
Yeah, and TNT getting a lot on that right-hand side with his Electro Wizard, but this Hog Rider going to come through and get one big swing in. 1046 still in favor to 1456 on Razor's side.
Here we go, final 60 seconds, triple elixir flowing. This is where TNT can turn up the pressure a whole lot. Razor going to get one swing, I believe, from this Hog Rider on the left-hand side. Has good damage in both lanes, but can he hold up against these graveyards as they start coming in really, really fast?
He uses the Hog Rider as a kite here, going to get picked up by that Barb Hut. Will that 4 elixir being wasted come back to hurt Razor on the defense? Let's find out now as an aggressive push comes in on the left-hand side.
Razor sets the line on the left-hand lane. Graveyard goes into the bomb tower side. Hog Rider trying to sneak through for a shot, and it will. Huge shot in for Razor on the right. 2 shots on the right.
That Archer army behind the Hog Rider just inhaled that Electro Wizard that came down to stop the Hog. Hog's gonna come in, EQ's gonna come in. Razor stays alive and plays that so very well for a shocking first head-to-head win on the season.
Yeah, it's crazy it took him this long to get it done, and what better time to do it than against a team that if Liquid is going to get into the mix for the playoffs, Andrew, and that of course is still a pretty significant if with the lineup they have in front of them. Team Liquid might be one of the teams they're competing for a number 5 or number 6 spot in playoffs.
It's interesting. Eric, the coach of Team Liquid, went on to Twitter and took full responsibility for their loss last week. And one thing that you and I have always given Eric credit for is no matter how far Liquid is back, no matter how many people call them washed or that they're done, he's got them success time and time again, and a lot of that comes from having rough moments at some part in the season and then not giving up for the rest of it. If today is any sort of indicator of the Liquid that we can look forward to for their next few matches, they are still very much a threat, and it's all starting with the guy right now in this 2v2 and 1v1. They traded for him. They need Razor to do what we're seeing him do today, and this is that Archer army supporting that Hog that just obliterated the E-Wiz that came down in defense for TNT.
Yeah, that was huge. Just completely sliced right through it and got the Hog to tower. So Razor right now 3-0 on the day, and maybe the promise of the player starting to pay off here in this late stage of the season. So Andrew, we're seeing Razor loosen up a little bit, maybe play with a little bit more comfort, more smiles on his face, and you got to imagine a lot of that comes from just having a 2v2 finally go the way he wanted.
Yes, and we all know, we talked a lot earlier in the season about rookies getting their first win, but anyone getting their first win on the season is a really big thing for confidence, and Razor's a guy that you love to be around. He's got an infectious energy, he's always smiling, he's always happy, but you saw in his prior few matches, he's been very stressed out because of exactly what you were saying, Rich, is that player promise that was there, the potential was just not showing through until right now. This is the Razor we're used to seeing, and he does seem much more comfortable in his element.
Let's jump into our second match at King of the Hill. Buffmac, one of the head-to-head stats leader of the 2019 fall split, had the most 1v1 games and sets won, the most King of the Hill games won in the fall of 2019 for Energy, 13 total games in King of the Hill, and led overall in head-to-head wins at 22 on that fall split.
So both of these gentlemen have E-Wiz and Mega Knight in their hands. Mega Knight cycled in the back, and a high Inferno Dragon is really going to help clean up the Mega Knight of Buffmac. Oh wow, the leap though.
Yeah, that's a big leap, and
yeah.
Mega Knight does not go all the way to tower. Well, not quite yet, but Mega Knight now in tanking, and there's going to be a lot of tankage for this graveyard, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, Razor was just completely betrayed by the interactions that he had known in this game. That Mega Knight turns around, leaps behind, and the Inferno Dragon that were to make this a very, very easy push to deal with gets reset. Ewiz comes down, an aggressive Ewiz from Buffmac. All of a sudden, it's towered down here for Team Liquid.
And a big outward breath from Buffmac as well. You saw there, maybe kind of going, okay, we got this back now after the big mistake in 2v2.
Yeah, and it was really just a great sequence of events there from Buffmac. He had the Fisherman down low, which pulled the Mega Knight way far behind. That, in turn, resets the Mega Knight, as we're seeing right here again. Exact same interaction for me to break down play-by-play. High Ewiz comes in. Ewiz distracted by the Inferno. Mega Knight back up front. Rinse and repeat for Buffmac. Trouble for Razor.
Yeah, who needs a replay when the same thing happens twice on the board there, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Razor even knew it was going to happen, but just wasn't able to stop it.
This Mega Knight will get all the way in, though. Razor to put some pretty significant pressure on the left-hand side. Ewiz in to work on the Inferno Dragon. 34 seconds left. 16:46 remains on the left-hand side, and Razor does have a bit more elixir in the tank.
Yeah, that Hunter, the great equalizer in this game is it can clear off elixir so quickly with that massive amount of damage. Placed just next to the Princess Tower helps with the Mega Knight, and because of that, this will be a Team Liquid loss in game number 2.
Bar Barrel trying to make enough room for Razor to get on through. Not gonna happen. Buffmac able to play solid defense, and it really all came down to the opening moments, Andrew. Quick tower down, and Buffmac ends the day for Razor.
Yeah, and you can see Razor probably trying to talk through those those first few moments, just being like, I had the Mega Knight down, I didn't think it was going to leap out of range, and the perfect cycle for Buffmac, both times having that Ewiz. There it is, Mega Knight too far away, opponent's Mega Knight leaps back behind, Inferno Dragon gets reset. Barb Barrel is where the overspend comes in from Razor, which was a great idea up until that Mega Knight leapt away. Ewiz comes in late, cleans up the Barb, cleans up the Inferno, has to use the Heal Spirit plus Royal Giant plus Ewiz to try and defend, but still overspends, no defense, tower down.
And that leaves, Razor doesn't have great responses in hand for a graveyard in the first place, but the Ewiz and Royal Ghost are two of the ones you might use there. Not to mention the Bar Barrel to clean up, so he'd used the Bar Barrel already on the other side, and that was the big overspend. And then the Ewiz and Royal Ghost have to both come out to control the Mega Knight. Well, slide a graveyard right on in there, and that's an easy win for Buffmac to get things evened up in King of the Hill.
And you saw there the win condition from Razor being the Ram Rider, which is why he didn't actually ever play his win condition. That one big push that he got in the final moments on the left-hand side. If you were playing Graveyard, that would have been the moment to do it. The Hunter was played back behind, the Ewiz was up a little bit higher, Mega Knight was tanking. But since that wasn't his win condition, we never actually saw it come out because there was no way that Ram Rider was going to get any value. So really, really well-controlled game by Buffmac. Obviously, very easy start for him, but that wasn't an accident. He did a good job there with the Fisherman pulling the Mega Knight away. Ewiz comes down. Perfect sequencing for a great attack.
Yeah, very, very nice work from Buffmac, and it's good to see not tilted after that mistake in the 2v2, and now he goes up against one of his actual former teammates in Canario, who has long been phenomenal in this King of the Hill set. Buffmac Canario, let's go. Game number 3, King of the Hill.
Poor Canario coming off a 3-game loss streak when it comes to head-to-head play. All started with the very bad luck of a disconnect in a match that he was up in against Lucas, I believe, and that disconnect sent him back to the bench. He came out in 1v1 to close things out and got 2-0'd by V12.
Pigs in, and Fisherman going for the King Tower activation here. Will get it done by just a hair.
Yep, Buffmac gets a nod there. Very happy about that. As dealing with dual lane pressure, having that King Tower activated is going to be really, really helpful. Now, it's not quite the same as when you're up against a bait deck or a graveyard deck, but dealing with dual lane pressure, having the King Tower activated is really great.
So this is interesting, Andrew. This is the Hog Rider Zappy's Royal Ghost deck. It's been a little bit popular, been kind of popping up a bit more in grand challenges as of late. Be very curious to see again. We talked about this before already, how the Royal Ghost gets mixed in for creative plays in the middle from Canario.
Yeah, Royal Ghost is still one of my favorite cards in the game. I love how tanky he is. I love the splash damage. I like that you can create strong offensive presence for 3 elixir that your opponent has to respond to. And, you know, demanding your opponent or making your opponent respond to something that they don't want to at the time is a really great way for Hogs to succeed.
Going with the poison version of this deck, which you understand because really no other excellent way to deal with Graveyard. Graveyard being very popular right now, and Fisherman has been absolutely massive for Buffmac today.
Look at that. What a reset there from Buffmac. The Fisherman comes down from Canario, perfectly placed to pull the Royal Giant coast to coast. Buffmac goes, you know what? If I drop that Ewiz right at the river, that's going to reset the Fisherman before the pull and retarget it for an insane amount of damage from the Royal Giant. Canario knows that's it.
That was absolutely massive. Buffmac out to a big lead and now putting pressure on. Zappy's come down. Fireball will take care of that fairly easily, and this Fisherman will put the Royal Giant right next to the tower.
Yeah, I mean, really tough spot there to get the Fisherman where he wanted it. He probably didn't want to play it up high and worried about pulling the Goblin, so instead he has to go lower than he'd like because he can't also get the Fireball value with the Zappies on the board. So Canario putting himself in trouble there.
Royal Hogs in. We gotta wonder where the cage is gonna come into play, or if it will come into play on this push. Decides not to, and Buffmac does mitigate most of that damage. We'll get a little more fireball value. Kill the tower left-hand side. That's gonna be a GG. Well played. Buffmac currently up 2 on his former team.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what you want out of Buffmac. This is what you expect. A guy that was recruited as a head-to-head star moves into the 2v2 spot and finds great success, but that is just an even more dangerous person to have in your opposing lineup. They can just come into this 1v1 King of the Hill and just run the table.
And it's so interesting to think about if Tribe Gaming had put up the 2v2 performance they expected, how different this set would feel. At this point, Buffmac has a chance to go for the King of the Hill sweep and set up his teammate, most likely Jupiter King, for a pretty solid 1v1 matchup, a showdown, probably with Igor, but you have the feeling that Tribe Gaming was hoping to be in a match point situation here rather than a set point situation.
Yeah, definitely. And that all becomes a question of the 2v2 and what mistakes were made. But, you know, Tribe, they just got to let it go. It's uncharacteristic of Buffmac and Azealis to make the mistakes that they saw. And this is that excellent play of the Ewiz. You see that up high, on top of the Fisherman, resets it, and instead of it pulling the Royal Giant, it takes the long walk across the bridge to go to that Electro Wizard. And that whole time, the Royal Giant is hanging out on tower. Beautiful, beautiful play from Buffmac.
Yeah, and like I said, and now 2 games back-to-back, Fisherman's been huge for Buffmac. On one side, the Fisherman creating the separation to get that big graveyard push. Other side, being able to stop the Fisherman, pick it up with the Ewiz, and then the support behind for him as well. So at the moment, Fisherman MVP, whether it be on the same side or going full Benedict Arnold for Buffmac.
Yeah, I mean, the Fisherman, their placement from Canario was excellent. The timing was perfect on it, and that's one of the things that shocks me when I watch pros play is their wherewithal and their ability, their reaction time. I don't know if Buffmac had the Ewiz selected already, if he had a different thing in play, but it was the second the Fisherman came down, he was able to reassess, set that Ewiz down, figure out what was going to happen if he played it, and end up taking the game. Those are the type of plays that make you top tier.
Here we go, Buffmac with a chance to go 1, 2, 3 in this King of the Hill, looking for his 4th career sweep in this set.
Igor cycling skeletons in the back. Very, very, you know, kind of characteristic of Igor to play something very fast and quick.
Maybe Buffmac looking similar. And notice the placement there. Buffmac going to the back, maybe hoping to get a little extra value out of that snowball. Archer's split lane for Buff, who looks like he's going Hog triple spell. The new updated Archer's variation. Did he go Bomb Tower? And yes, he did.
Yep, Bomb Tower going to help out a lot. Fireball going to go on top of that Archers and the Bomb Tower, but Skeleton's there to help out. A little bit of an aggressive Fireball there from Igor, but Igor's also not the type to overspend and put himself out.
And you can see he did have a little elixir on hand to do that, so as the snowball comes out to defend against the Mega Minion, does leave the Russian with a just under 2 elixir advantage over the Brit.
Yeah, and he's doing the correct thing here, cycling cheap cards in the back to make sure that if Wolfmac wants to go on the offense, he will have a response. So he's going to continue to cycle cards in the back that aren't incredibly high DPS or that can't refocus that Hog Rider just because of what we're talking about there.
Just a little EQ cycle on the left-hand side, going to put some damage on the tower and a little bit more on the Ice Wizard as well. These are two players interesting to note about both Wolfmac and Igor, who you will see do a little bit of spell cycle earlier in a game than you might expect.
Yeah, I mean, once they recognize what their opponent is playing, they know where to use the spells and which spells are going to be the most important. So you see there, obviously, Igor has cycled Log and Fireball, but is holding the Tornado because he knew he was going up against Hog Rider and eventually would want to activate the King Tower. So a lot of great decision-making here from the young Russian.
Log and Bomb Tower will take care of the Royal Giant. First 2 minutes away, we are in double elixir, and we'd be very curious to see how Wolfmac plans to break through and create any significant offense with that Hog Rider.
Yeah, and what's tough here is how quickly the deck is that Igor is playing cycles as well, right? A lot of times when you're playing this Hog triple spell deck, one of its greatest advantages is how quickly it can get back around to another Hog Rider or Earthquake. Well, when you're going up against a cheap Royal Giant deck that you have to defend, makes it a little bit more difficult.
Well, there was sort of a period, Andrew, where people were playing Ice Bow with Royal Giant. There was almost a meme for a while. Ice Bow, but with Hog Rider. Ice Bow, but with Miner. Ice Bow, but with Royal Giant. And you're seeing a not dissimilar idea here, right? You have the Bomb Tower instead of a Tesla. You have the Mega Minion that makes it a little bit heavier than you might think, but in general, it's a lot of those same pieces.
Yeah, and Wolfmac doing a great job here. I'm pretty sure everyone knew that Igor was going to go for the double Royal Giant drop when he cycled that one in the back. And that'll happen a lot with this quick cycle deck, is that your opponent will over-defend on one side, and then you'll just go naked Royal Giant the opposite. Wolfmac saw that coming from a mile away and made sure to have the elixir in hand to immediately drop a Bomb Tower. Really great heads-up defense from the Brit.
Yeah, and good elixir management right now, Andrew, and that's going to be key because it's going to be hard to get Hog Rider shots, and you can see how he's able to cycle Earthquake on those left-hand side.
Yeah, the elixir management is key here. Both these decks cycling so quickly with such hard-hitting win conditions, you can never be caught out, and both of them doing an excellent job with elixir management and keeping that Bomb Tower in cycle.
Royal Giant on the right does not get a shot. Now to the left-hand side goes Igor. Bomb Tower back again, trying to hold off on the Royal Giant. Fireball does not get any tower damage there, but the Royal Giant does connect on the left, and that is huge. 1634 to 1454.
Yeah, and now you'll see Wolfmac doing the correct thing. He's going to go all in on offense, so Igor has to overspend, goes back on defense. Bomb Tower going to come in. Will the Fireball go back on top of it? No, it will not. That would be a way overspend.
And now the Archers come around to the outside to try to help out with the Royal Giant. Final 35 seconds. Snowball trying to make some room for the Hog Rider. High Bomb Tower out of Igor, and the spell cycle continues for Wolfmac. He started it early. He's keeping it going.
Yeah, that spell cycle right now is becoming brutal. Not really even about getting those Hog Rider hits in, but more about making his opponent spend to defend the Hog Rider, and in doing that, he's getting his cycle all the way back again. 2 Earthquakes have come down. Not a single Royal Giant shot has come in the last minute.
Wolfmac back to another Bomb Tower here, although this Royal Giant could connect. NATO trying to make some damage on their EQ to slow down the opposite direction. The Snowball on defense. Wolfmac plays it brilliantly at the end, gets the huge win. King of the Hill sweep. We're going to set number 3.
And I love the late drop there from Wolfmac, waiting for Igor to drop that Tornado as a last-ditch effort. He knew everything was going to come down, that he had just enough space to play very, very cautiously. Great plays from Wolfmac with a huge sweep. And if you have him on your fantasy lineup, you got to be very, very happy about his performance right there.
Yeah, I mean, getting back into it after the struggle. You know, you see him lose in the 2v2, and I have Wolfmac on my fantasy lineup this week. Seeing him lose the 2v2 the way he did, it felt like a big rip, but instead locks it down. And Andrew, this defense he plays in these final moments is just beautiful.
It's just excellent every single time. The ability to get back around to that Earthquake, and then you see here, all he's got is a Knight on the board with this low HP Bomb Tower. High Bomb Tower comes in. A great Fireball here from Igor, and it looks like it just might be the end of it, but he slows down the Royal Giant with a defensive Earthquake. that's it. That Royal Giant gets 1 or 2 more shots in, that's game over. The defensive Earthquake, instead of going for the tower damage, great play from Bookmat.
Yeah, absolutely huge. Huge performance, and this is what Tribe wanted from him, and it's got to feel good for him to get this performance specifically against this team. You know, a lot of history between him and Team Liquid. You know, I'm sure there's no significant bad blood now, but it wasn't a hugs and kisses split, if you will, when Buffmac moved on to Energy in the fall of last year. So a big win for him, and now sets up a matchup that, man, Igor and Jupiter King, this is the kind of thing you want to see. And I believe we've already seen this once in CRL East during the stage 2, or not in CRL East, in stage 2 of the No Tilt World Championship when Igor and Jupiter King went head to head.
So what's been really interesting about Igor's performance in head-to-head play this season is he has been incredibly dominant in the King of the Hill, but he's actually struggled a lot in the 1v1 set. He's lost to Bale, he's lost to Ruben, and he's lost, and he wasn't played in the last one where Canario lost to Vitor. So even though he's been great in King of the Hill, he hasn't been able to translate that success over to the 1v1 set, where we know Jupiter King is a big, big threat. Today out of Igor, what we saw was 9.5 Elixir leaked in a matchup against Buffmac with a very quick cycle deck because his opponent made him play a slower game. We talked about controlling the pace and tempo a lot because it was really important. Igor playing that quick of a deck, leaking that much Elixir with Royal Giant as his win condition just goes to show there were many moments throughout that he didn't know exactly what decision to make, and that's uncharacteristic of Igor.
Well, it's been an uncharacteristic year. Let's go ahead and jump into our matchup, and it will be Igor versus Jupiter King. It's been an uncharacteristic match, second half of the year overall for Igor, who's gone a lot to playing the same deck back-to-back, and I mentioned that these two met during the No Tilt World Championship. It was a best-of-5 set in Stage 2, and Igor played the same Mortar deck, I think it was Mortar Hog Rider against Jupiter King 4 games in a row, ended up sort of throwing the set here, and he's been doing a lot of that overall this year, playing the same deck repeatedly, kind of being maybe a bit predictable here and there, and it just has not looked the way he looked going into our World Championship.
Yeah, and you wonder if some of that maybe is his age, maybe not being as coachable. We haven't heard any of things like that out of Eric about Igor, so it is pure speculation. But seeing it Night Witch immediately lets us know that he will be doing something a bit different today.
Yeah, Night Witch arrows. This might be Lava Arrow Zap. Bomb Tower, interesting wrinkle here in that equation.
So Mega Knight comes down opposite lane. Night Witch is out of cycle. See what Igor has to deal with anything on the back end if Jupiter King decides to pull the trigger here.
Musketeer to the right, first minute and a half away. Graveyard does come in, and the Giant to kite the Mega Knight away.
Okay, so Giant Night Witch here. Dark Prince going to help clean up these skeletons, but a lot of great poison value for Jupiter King and good tower damage, and he stops the counter push in the opposite lane. So really, really nice plays with the King Tower activation, and this is why Jupiter King is so dang good.
Yeah, that all went Jupiter's way from top to bottom. You know, it's interesting. You think about those tanky kites early on, whether it be with a Royal Giant or a Giant. But you think about tanking something like a Mega Knight or a P.E.K.K.A early on, and it feels like it almost always turns back around to bite you.
Yeah, you know, what would have been really nice for Igor to do there was if his Musketeer was actually played offset to the left and it was able to assist in the graveyard and the kite of the Mega Knight with the Giant. I don't believe that the cards were in sequence for him to do that, but that way he would have been able to take the Mega Knight off the board, use the Dark Prince to clean up the graveyard, and the Giant would have still created some offensive presence, but just wasn't in the cards for Igor there, and honestly, at this point, it feels like a downhill bounce-back game in this opening 1v1.
Yeah, this is pretty brutal so far. 1228 on the right-hand side, not to mention the 1646 on the left-hand side. Jupiter King putting the hurt on Igor right now. 4-4 so far on the season between the 1v1 set and King of the Hill. It looks like he's about to move that season record into the positive.
It's going to be really tough for Igor to get his Giant where he'd like it to be with the Fisherman in the hand of Jupiter King and nothing really else from Igor to demand that Fisherman out anywhere. So you see there, Fisherman's going to be played up high to reset the Giant, start pulling across all these units that Igor is dropping defensively or to support his offense and just get him out of cycle, get him out of the way.
You see all the elixir and effort that was spent by Igor to protect the Musketeer. First the Night Witch, then the Dark Prince. And the fact that you can't protect the Musketeer after all of that just shows how difficult the situation is and kind of how playing from behind Igor was in those moments.
Yeah, and even in that moment again, you saw him trying to do something, just anything, create any sort of true effective defense, and he's just not able to do it. I mean, a big part of it is if you look at the single target damage and the splash damage from Igor, he doesn't have a lot of responses to help with the graveyards. I mean, the best thing for him would be a Night Witch in the back, but he hasn't had that in cycle the whole game.
A Night Witch in the graveyard, but that's going to be no help at all. Jupiter King with a very, very easy win in game number 1.
Yeah, and this is not what you want to see out of Igor. Kind of getting taken down very simply by Buffmac, taken down easily here by Jupiter King, and that starts to make me worried if I'm Team Liquid, because he has been the one source of consistency, it feels like, in head-to-head play. I mean, he's been consistently losing in 1v1, but consistently winning in King of the Hill, and now if Igor's also on the rocks, what does that spell for Team Liquid?
And it's such a frustrating situation to be in, to finally get the 2v2 moving, and then to be here where they're now facing the potential loss after getting the 2v2 advantage, after getting the first game win out of Razor and King of the Hill. Suddenly it's match point Tribe Gaming.
Yeah, and you see here, this is a little bit of what we were talking about. You know, the Giant kites the Mega Knight to the other side. If they're able to play that Musketeer up high and to the left to help with the graveyard and to help with the Mega Knight being kited, that's the only way I think to get out of that situation on top. I don't believe that the cycle was in the cards there for Igor, though, and, you know, it just ends up being a way for that Mega Knight to just delay its push on the left-hand side and then create more offense for you to have to deal with later on than you'd like. So that's also why we saw that tower on the left being below 1700, was Igor just completely ignored that originally kited Mega Knight.
So we'll see if Igor can bounce back in game number 2. Andrew, if there's one thing that I think everyone is wondering is, does Igor play Mortar in game number 2, and does Tribe Gaming choose a deck to counter Mortar in game number 2?
Definitely. I think definitely you run something that has a strong counter to Mortar, but doesn't rely solely on playing against Mortar. I think that's the best way to go here, just because we have seen Igor do that so many times before. Let's run something that can deal with it well. Let's run something that, you know, Jupiter King's really great with high cycle decks. Maybe he just goes hog triple spell because he knows he can keep the pressure up and keep Mortar at bay. But let's find out here in game number 2.
It's match point for Tribe Gaming, fighting from behind, and this is part of why this team is so dangerous, Andrew. There are some squads that need to win in 2v2, that need to rely on the head-to-head play. Tribe Gaming has a squad that can get it done in any phase of the match.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about TNT, Buffmac, and Jupiter King being the three of the people that can come into your King of the Hill, the fact that any of them could get a sweep and no one would be surprised by it, yeah, it's an incredible, incredible lineup.
So just some slow play early on. Miner in both directions. It does feel, it's an interesting question, right, Andrew? Because Miner has been hit with the Nerf hammer over and over and over and over again, and still so valuable, so popular.
Yeah, I mean, there's just something about not being able to stop the Miner without catching it unless you have the E-Wiz. You know, the ability to get damage on the tower regularly every 5 cards for as cheap as it is. I still absolutely think the Miner is probably the best card in the game.
So looks like Balloon for Jupiter King. Could be something different, but you know, you see Miner, you see the Giant Skeleton, and there you go, Miner Balloon push to the left-hand side.
Yeah, and that's a good Balloon push there, recognizing that the Hunter did the best responses out of cycle, although the Night Witch being played in the back is going to be nice here. Yes, the death damage will come in, but a good counter push in from Igor as well.
Bar Barrel for the Miner will also help with the Night Witch, so well defended there by Jupiter King.
And you see there, the drop radius in the Heal Spirit would have normally hit that Night Witch, or would have hit the Night Witch before, but after the change, not going to do it, so definitely a necessary change.
2 different Giant Night Witch decks from Igor in back-to-back matchups, Andrew, between the Graveyard one we saw last game and the Miner one we saw this game. I gotta wonder whether this is just Igor's enjoying playing Giant Night Witch right now. There's something about that combination they liked in the matchup against Jupiter's deck.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what it is. I'm actually kind of surprised to see two different versions of Giant Night Witch come out from Igor, as it's not an archetype that we see him run a ton. Luckily for him, though, he does have good responses to air with that Hunter and the Night Witch.
A lot of complicated interactions going on all there at once, Andrew. I heard you stop for a second. I was trying to focus on that as well. The Fisherman pulls the Miner away. The Fireball comes in. Tornado. There was a lot all happening at once. The result here, though, is that Jupiter King is still in the lead as we go into sudden death.
Yeah, so much happening on the board for very little success. Jupiter King, though, extending his lead with that Ice Wiz lock, and this high Hunter should get eaten alive by that Giant Skeleton bottom.
Giant into the left-hand side, and Miner goes to the outside for the Giant Skeleton. Fireball going to get a little bit of value here, pushes the Ice Wiz. Look at that log to clean the Ice Wizard off. Giant going to get pretty close to tower, not quite, just one shot does come in.
Yeah, and that one shot comes in because of a nice slow there. I mean, the nice taking the slow out of play there from the Ice Wizard, getting it off the board, even that little bit of DPS. Here we go, Hunter up front, close and personal. Going to happen every single time a balloon comes in.
Final 90 seconds, pressure on the right-hand side. And that single barb barrel, I like that play, Andrew.
Yep.
It's a good little pressure play, forces the log, so it can't be used offensively at this point.
Yeah, and exactly. It forces out the log, or it forces out the heal spirit, or a negative spend. So none of those things are what Igor wants to do, but the log is the best option. And that's one of the best things about the barb barrel is sometimes it's just great to create a little bit of pressure. Look at that.
Oh, wow. What a play from Jupiter King. Almost gets the full-on drop, still gets a ton of damage on the right-hand side. That NATO play was brilliant, and now pressure in the left.
Yeah, you know, the Hunter's going to want to come down, so the Miner goes to the best spot for the Hunter. Hunter turns around, Fireball comes in late. Great Fireball there to prevent this balloon drop in, but Igor feels like he's just hanging on by a thread.
Final 30 seconds. We do have the more spell cycle value for Igor when we get into those final moments. And with that Miner getting on tower, Igor getting Fireball value, this is very, very big for Team Liquid.
Oh yeah, that Giant is healthy. It's going to go through to the tower. Should get at least 2 shots in. 1 in, 2 in. Miner on the back. Fireball. Igor steals this in the final seconds of this game number 2.
Wow, great play by Igor to get back in it at the end. Jupiter King gets some fancy plays in the middle, but in the end, it's the number that matters on tower. Igor evens things up at 1-1.
Yeah, and you see Jupiter King kind of looking off to the right, wondering what went wrong in that final sequence of defense. And really what it was, I believe, the Giant Skeleton bomb getting pulled away so that Giant Plus was able to work across the bridge unmitigated. Jupiter King had the elixir advantage, has the cycle advantage, was able to get another bomb tower down, but with all that DPS on his side of the board, 2 miners come in from Igor. Just a really, really great moment there for him to get that Giant Skeleton out of play. That was the problem for him for that 5 minutes.
So here we go. Timeout called by Team Liquid. Want to really take a close look at deck selection as they go into game number 3, the deciding game here. And you see this, the NATO, maybe a bit of an overspend here. You know, they get a ton of damage on tower on the right-hand side, a huge lead, but take a look at what happens now on the left with this kite.
Yeah, I was just shocked that Igor actually didn't lose that right-hand tower. Jupiter King did what felt like the right thing, which is go aggressive on the left-hand side. The only problem is that Igor has negative or positive elixir trade responses for him, right? So he gets the Giant down first, the kite units away, that he can then drop the Hunter down in to get right on top of that balloon. And he knows that Jupiter King is going to be waiting for that Hunter, so he defends it against the Miner. Those are all really, really great decisions that Igor made to get him to take this W.
Yeah, great way to battle back for Igor, and now this game has been an emotional roller coaster, Andrew. You know, you look at the front end and you see in the 2v2, big highs for Team Liquid and the misplays for Tribe Gaming. Then come back out and Buffmac against his former squad goes with a 1-2-3 King of the Hill sweep. And then it looked like Igor was in so much trouble. I mean, yeah. I hope someone's taking some aspirin, some sort of heart health medication right now, just so they can keep that thing pumping correctly.
Yeah, it really has been completely back and forth. A sweep in the 2v2, a sweep in the King of the Hill, now back and forth in the 1v1. We're back to 0. You know, I like to say that every single time because it's completely true. BO1 for the match now. Igor versus Jupiter King. Liquid trying to stay alive and Tribe trying to stay at the top. This is obviously a much more important match for Liquid to win, but if Tribe loses, that's 3 in a row for a squad that didn't lose once in the regular season back in the spring.
If Tribe loses, not only is that 3 in a row, Andrew, but it makes it very, very hard for them to get that first round bye. Yeah. Right? It'd be shocking. You don't imagine that Tribe falls all the way out of the playoff contention, but a loss here puts them at 3-3 on the season. And with the way that Queso and SK are playing, that's going to be a very difficult mountain to climb to get back into contention for a number 1 or number 2 spot.
Yeah, and let's not forget about the match at the end of the day today. Spacestation Gaming still looking to end up in those top few positions. They're definitely not out of the running yet, and if AC and RF can get back on track, that 2v2 duo coupled with Lapacati and you throw Samuel Basoto in there, they're still a very, very threatening team. Right now, Igor versus Jupiter King. I really loved what I saw out of Igor in game 2. I really didn't like what I saw out of him in game 1, whereas Jupiter King felt much more consistent throughout the first 2 games.
Yeah, I think Jupiter King just got caught there. Maybe overspent a little bit. The push on the left-hand side maybe didn't need the giant skeleton on that push and could have saved it more for defense rather than for an offensive moment. And it just seems like maybe he got a little overconfident in those ones. So we'll see if that translates into game number 3. So here's the question. We talked about Igor doing the same thing over and over again. Do we see a third variation of Giant Night Witch here in game 3?
Oh, man. I mean, it would be crazy to see him go like Lava Night Witch clone so that maybe his opponent, when he sees the Night Witch, thinks he's running it back. I think you definitely don't go Night Witch Giant again, and I think you definitely don't go Mortar. Let's find out here in game number 3.
Yeah, let's do it. All on the line.
If he runs Mortar, though, I mean, I wouldn't be sad about it.
I think a lot of people wouldn't be sad to see Igor run Mortar in this situation.
Not going to be the case as you see the Heal Spirit come out.
And Jupiter just sitting back here on this Royal Ghost. And doesn't quite get the angle. Decided to leak some elixir to go for a splash damage King Tower activation, but not quite getting the timing right.
Yeah, it's a tough pull there, and the fireball there able to come out from Igor as he recognized a bit of an overspend from his opponent. Still up by 1 with the Hunter on the board.
And that's a great Barb Barrel out of Jupiter King. Perfectly timed, keeps the E-Wiz exactly here where I wanted to go, and oh boy.
Yeah, missed log there from Igor. Hits the Heal Spirit, but completely misses the E-Wiz. So a couple great micro interactions there from Jupiter King to give him some good damage on the left-hand tower and even up this game.
Jupiter King's personal best, 85-73 on ladder. Up against Igor, whose personal best is somewhere in the high 8,000s.
Again, just great plays here from Jupiter King. That Fisherman being a nuisance, clearing off all the support DPS from Igor. A nicely timed Heal Spirit's going to allow that one Baby Dragon Belch to come in. Not a lot, but still ends up winning that little battle.
First 2 minutes away. Jupiter King with the advantage right now over Igor. Slight variations on Royal Giant both directions. The splash damage taken care of by Baby Dragon for Jupiter by Royal Ghost for Team Liquid's Russian player.
Yeah, not going to be able to pull the high Fisherman is Igor, so he's going to go low here instead. Royal Giant still going to get a couple shots in.
Yeah, I was a little caught off guard by the lightning there. I didn't exactly see what it hit in that exchange.
Yeah, you know, Jupiter King went high with the lightning on the support troops for Igor, but I did feel like it was a slight overspend. I think he would have been able to defend pretty well by getting different units on the board instead of that spell power, and that's why Igor was so comfortable to go right back on offense. Jupiter King was able to kind of recover gracefully from it and get another lightning back down. Wow, okay.
That was a nice lightning there. Taking care of the E-Wiz, taking care of the Ghost, putting tower damage down. I want to see if that first lightning hit 3 or 2 shots.
Yeah, and you knew that there was going to be a bit of a Fisherman battle to settle. Oh, misses a bit of everything with that. Royal Giant pulls into the center. Fisherman on top. Barb or excuse me, Goblin Cage focusing on not the RG, so it gets another shot in.
So 2 RG hits come in, and just like that, though, the opposite direction, Heal Spear on the Royal Giant. Jupiter King gonna shut down Igor, gonna shut down Team Liquid, and that might close the door on Liquid's playoff hopes.
Yeah, a couple missed fireballs there from Igor. Jupiter King playing really, really great, not overspending, picking those bridge battles, then doubling down with his Royal Giant, doing exactly what Jupiter King does. Methodical, calculated, unstoppable.
Just unbelievable what this kid could do for Tribe Gaming, and with that win today, puts himself back in the winner's circle overall for his record on the season, 6-5. Let's go ahead and take a look, and I'm wondering if this is that first lightning that we're going to see here. This is the missed log.
Yeah, and that was just like, you know, it's a really small thing, but it's just upsetting, and it starts you off with just a bad place to be in. You're down an elixir, and then right here you see this is the lightning up high. It only hits 2 units, so it did feel like a misspend there from Jupiter. But the thing is that it almost baited out the second Royal Giant from Igor because of the overspend, and then there's just a straight miss fireball hitting only the tower from Igor.
Yeah, we talk about the Fisherman being the traitor. A2 Brute stabs more people in the back than the famous man who took down Julius Caesar. And you have the Fisherman pulling the defensive troops out of the way of the fireball, creates an easy opportunity for a massive counter push. Jupiter King putting the nail in the coffin, winning this one in the third and final set.
Yeah, you know, and I felt like that was probably a loss for Igor on that push anyway, but had that fireball been able to hit the Heal Spirit, he would have given himself a little bit more of a chance. So the season started off with all the words and all the hot speak about Tribe being about TNT, but now it's shifted back where we'd expect, which is the 2v2 and Buffmac and Azelius, and Jupiter King doing what he does in that 1v1 set. Tribe looking back in fighting form, and Team Liquid now at 1-5, never being able to put 2 sets together, it seems. Are they done for the season, Rich?
I don't know. I mean, that drops them all the way down into 9th place at the moment. Of course, Chivas could meet them there if they lose their matchup tomorrow, and that's going to be a tough one for them, of course, against Queso. But they're in 9th place, they're 1-5, and if we also look at the remaining schedule they have, Andrew, we talked about this last weekend, but the gauntlet they have to go through, so they lose the Tribe. Next weekend, they have Space Station. Then after that, they have Misfits, which at this point feels like a bit of a toss-up. And then they close out the season against SK Gaming. I don't see them winning more than 2 of those 3 matches. And at that, or winning more than 2 of those 3. And at that point, I don't think that's enough to put them into playoffs.
Yeah, and I just have to ask the question that's probably on a lot of people's mind is, where is Surgical Goblin? Why are we seeing so little of him this season? Where does he fall into the roster of Team Liquid, or does he not anymore? And that's one of the reasons why they've been finding such little success here in 2020 fall.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. We'll get more on that on the back end. Right now, we have one more match on the day. See you here in 5. Don't go anywhere. Hope you enjoyed your break time battles there. Another one bites the dust against a top-tier CRL pro. Pompeo been doing it at a high level for a very, very long time. Speaking about a high level for a long time, Andrew, we have a lot of veterans in this next one coming up. Cream Royale Betis against Spacestation Gaming. A lot of players who've been here since Season 1. A lot of newer players in the mix as well. I think the big question for this one, Andrew, comes down to a referendum on the 2v2. Are AC and RF able to get on the same page for Space Station? Is Cream as good as their record, or is it just that they've played against mid to sub-tier 2v2 competition?
Well, what's crazy about Cream is Belican. Belican has emerged as this head-to-head star when we all thought it was going to be ex-Pedro 15, but Belican 2-0'd Lucas, he 2-0'd Jupiter King. He's done a lot of work in King of the Hills since their very first matchup, sweeping Team Liquid. This is massive. I think Cream is better than what everyone thinks. I think they're actually as good, or if not better, than their record even suggests at 3-2. They're a force to be reckoned with right now, and it's a lot because of Belican, but also what Diego E and Michifu have done in that opening 2v2 set. They have been almost unstoppable. However, they really did struggle against Azelis and Buffmac in their last match, so I'm excited to see what they do today against another top-tier 2v2 duo. That being said, is SSG still a top tier 2v2 duo? It feels crazy to be saying that out loud, but what we've seen lately from them just feels a little bit off from where they've been before.
Yeah, it becomes a weird question where I don't know how much is actually answered about either one of these two squads. You know, you have Cream Royale Betis, they're 4-1 in these sets in 2v2, but they beat the struggling Team Liquid, Razor and Canario. They beat Dignitas, who's been up and down in 2v2, Benny Hu and Kuchiku, Sweep and Wallace. There's no 2v2 duo there where you're like, oh, they beat a monster. And on the other side, AC and RF, can they get themselves in rhythm? I think that'll define a lot about how this match goes.
Yeah, I mean, they're 2-5 since they've rejoined together in that 2v2 set, which is a much lower win percentage than we're used to seeing those guys together. They're in the same house, they're in the same place, they're communicating in the same room. So let's find out if they can bounce back in the 2v2 against Diego E and Michifu. Cream versus Spacestation Gaming. Let's go.
Queen Real Betis e Space Station. A Space Station vacilou contra o líder, contra a SK, não conseguiu a vitória. A Queen Real Betis ganhou no seu confronto contra a Tribe, vem de uma boa partida e tá com moral. Vai ser provavelmente aí a disputa mais equilibrada, mas eu ainda vou dar a chance.
Cream Royale Betis is coming off of a huge upset win. If they can do Tribe Gaming and Space Station back-to-back, they suddenly become one of the scariest teams in the division.
Tiene que defender como sea y tirar una bola de fuego rápido. La torre y la ganó. La ganó Beliki.
La ganó Beliki. La ganó Beliki. La ganó. Wow. Qué bien que la jugó. Qué bien que la jugó. La esperó hasta el final y en el por 3 recién, cuando tuvo su posibilidad, lo colapsó a Benny.
A lot's been talked about the 2v2 matchup so far between these two teams. King of the Hill has been all about huge performances as well. Of course, St. Bellican with his opening sweep for Cream Royale Betis, and overall in King of the Hill, he has been phenomenal on the season, killing it for Cream Royale Betis there and also in that third and final set alongside the 2v2 work of Michifu and Diego E. The question was Pedro, but they haven't needed him thus far, Andrew.
Yeah, AC joining us a bit late this season for Space Station Gaming, but he's here and he's ready to go. Lapicati, Samuel Basotto, and the God RF rounding out that roster. And for Space Station Gaming, it's been a little bit interesting. You know, you talk about that 2v2 duo of Lapicati and the God RF working so well together, but that got replaced by AC as soon as he came back from his suspension. Lapicati and Samuel Basotto have both been a little bit back and forth. Samuel should be their go-to head-to-head guy for that third and final set, but Lapicati took it most recently when they went up against Misfits, where he 2-0'd Schwarzen.
Here we go. Let's jump into the opening set. 2v2, Diego E and Michifu, 4-1 in sets, 9-5 in games against one of the longest standing duos in the game, all the way back to Season 1 Fall with Immortals.
See here, AC and RF right-hand side of your screen, top of your screen as well, banning Balloon. The first time we've seen Balloon banned this season in 2v2. Diego E and Michifu, left-hand side of your screen, and of course at the bottom, going with the more traditional Fisherman.
Well, you know, I like the Balloon ban out of AC and RF, in particular because they love running double Graveyard. And the Balloon ban means that they don't have to worry about that, and they can build a good double Graveyard deck when they want it, and it gets rid of that Graveyard Balloon combination, which can be so frustrating.
Now, one thing I am curious is that we see the Fisherman off the board and the Balloon off of the board. Does that mean maybe we see Royal Giant Graveyard? We saw that earlier today. They didn't actually work out, but with these two bans, it could be much stronger. You throw Lightning in the mix to take out a building, and you could have yourself a recipe for success.
Well, you know, Andrew, we're talking about all the different possibilities out there. 3 cards that are still in the mix: NATO, Giant Skeleton, and Rocket. And you don't see a whole ton of Rocket in 2v2 because of how often NATO's banned, but I'm very curious to see if anyone does go that direction. You should expect there's going to be at least 1 Tornado, if not 2 on each side.
Yeah, so right now it's just the battle of the emotes. Hey, maybe I'll even throw one in there. Why not? Could do a little Kissing Knight or Prince there.
Ooh, that's a pretty good one. Let's see. How about a, there we go. There's a Kissing Hog Rider for you.
So AC and RF actually communicating a lot here, even though, I mean, all four gentlemen here actually saying quite a bit to one another, probably guessing what their opponents are running, which is funny because there hasn't been a card played yet, so it's all speculation. And we see Diego E and Michifu go hot and heavy right-hand side. AC and RF a little bit lighter on the left.
It's weird. You know, I think about this, Andrew. How many times have we seen a staring contest in 2v2? Almost never. So very, very curious to see that happen here today.
And there is the lightning. The lightning, though, misses the Electro Wizard from Diego E and Michifu, so that's a really bad lightning from Cream here. AC and RF recognizing the opening. They go on the heavy offense of the Royal Giant.
NATO does save the day, and again, we see the first of what I expect will be at least 2 NATOs in this matchup. Would be shocking to see AC and RF run a deck that has 0 in what it is possible, but we'll see what happens. Lava Hound sets up on the left-hand side for Cream.
So a couple of calls here from both you and myself. You know, you talking about what you were just saying there. You add in the layer of the Royal Giant Graveyard from AC and RF, which makes sense with the bans. And of course, the lightning coming out for Diego and Michifu as they're going heavy in the air. They want to be able to take down any building that may come in the way. So, you know, we were able to call it a little bit, which means I'm sure the analysts were expecting some of it.
NATO plays defense again, and the Royal Giant really struggles with the amount of cloggage you can do in this game. Not to mention just the ability to put a building down. When you add NATO into the mix, it is so hard to get RG on the board. My wonder, Andrew, in this matchup is if the Royal Giant plays more to get things out of cycle and Graveyard is the bigger damage to you.
That's what I think. I think you definitely go for, well, apparently right now it's the Lumberjack. I think you do go Graveyard to get the damage in on tower, and the RG is more about getting things out of sequence. And it looks like RF and AC might have recognized that, as they are never committing too much on those Royal Giant pushes.
Here we go, final minute, triple elixir on its way. Cream sets up the Goblin Cage on defense, and again, pressure out of Space Station.
And I like this. I like going Giant Skeleton plus Graveyard first, because that mini P.E.K.K.A keeps coming out and is eating up that Royal Giant. So instead, you get that mini P.E.K.K.A to work for you and have it take down the Giant Skeleton.
RG does not connect with tower, doesn't really matter. Right now, it's all about just forcing the win in this bridge battle. E-Wiz High being tanked for by the Mega Knight, so Inferno Dragon not doing a whole lot. Fireball goes to tower rather than the bridge fight. Doesn't matter. Mega Knight leaps in. This is absolutely huge for Space Station.
Yeah, that was a pretty incredible bridge battle that we saw there for a moment, but the big problem was just not enough damage on the ground for Cream. So we see a very quiet first minute of gameplay. Space Station Gaming goes Royal Giant Graveyard against Cream's Lava Hound, and they end up taking a very, very nice W here in game number 1.
Yeah, really, really clean win, and it was, you see the rare staring contest, and you know, it seems strange to say this with Lava Hound, and I wonder if Diego E and Michifu, because of how slow it is to get damage on tower, for a Lava Hound deck, if they might have benefited from playing during single, oddly enough.
Yeah, maybe, and there was actually a lightning in the hand of the God RF as well, so they go Royal Giant, Lightning, plus Graveyard. Their opponents, though, having nothing to lightning throughout that entire game, never actually needing to be necessary. This is where that Lumberjack cruises on through to tower, getting tanked for by the Skeletons for a second, eats up that Heal Spirit, and then gets a bunch of swings in.
And you mentioned that earlier Lightning, Andrew, that only got a Mega Knight, and look, a Lightning that hits one target is always devastating. A Lightning whose only target it hits is a Mega Knight. That is a huge, huge problem for Cream.
Yeah, and RF and AC went on the offensive, immediately recognizing that, giving them a bit of a lead, and then of course playing from behind with Lava Hound. And you look at this Lava Hound deck construction, they don't have Balloon, they don't have Miner, what they have is Lava Hound. So the idea for them was to try and get big, beefy pushes coming across and actually chipping away with that Lava Hound plus on the back end, but their opponents just had too much spell power, too much firepower, excuse me.
Yeah, again, you know, it comes back to my question of, I understand the staring contest when you're playing Lava Hound in 1v1, although that doesn't happen anymore. Now people play Lava first play. It's pretty much the meta at this point for Lava Hound. Yeah. I'm a little bit curious about waiting in 2v2. Waiting till double elixir just seems like you're asking for trouble.
Well, they weren't going for Lava Loon pushes, and they weren't going for Lava Miner pushes, so it does feel like at least dropping one Lava Hound and single Elixir to feel out your opponent would have been a good idea, right? It's not an overcommit, it's one card, your opponent's full on Elixir, or excuse me, your teammate's full on Elixir, so they can probably adequately defend. But if your win condition is 2 Lava Hounds with a bunch behind it and it not being a balloon, that's a really hard push to put together. You at least need to figure out what your opponent's got in the tank.
So, I mean, I guess the big question here is, are we seeing a little bit of the crack in the armor for Cream Real Betis? We've talked a lot about their 2v2 skill set, but they already fell to one elite duo in Buffmac and Azealis, and right now looked out of their element against another seasoned veteran, another elite duo in AC and RF.
Yeah, that's a very, very, I think, eloquent way of putting it, is just kind of out of their element. They weren't completely outplayed, but they were just straight out of their element in the sense that they never were able to get on offense. They just kind of dropped Lava Hounds when they had the Elixir for it, and that was really the end of the thought process, it seemed.
So no waiting this time around. A little cycle from RF, dropping the skeletons and Ewiz. Baby Dragon comes down, and again, early pressure from Cream Real Betis.
And that's a nice lightning come in here from the God RF and Ockrap.
Yeah, I mean, with how popular Musketeer still is despite the nerf, we talked about this a few weeks ago. Seeing Lightning get into the mix more in 2v2 seems like it makes sense.
Yeah, especially with Hunter popping in more and more in 1v1 and 2v2. There's great targets there for that Lightning.
And that log, does it let the Lumberjack escape? No, log the opposite direction to make sure it does not get on tower. Cream cycles Dark Prince to the right-hand side, Mega Knight in response.
Yeah, Mega Knight Hunter been very, very popular today.
Keeping track of cycle is so difficult in general, Andrew, and you think about it in 2v2. How do you keep track of when and where a spell like a Lightning is or is not in hand?
Yeah, it becomes tough, and it's one of those things that you'd have to talk to a 2v2 pro about a little bit more, is how many cycles through does it take them to recognize where and when spells or cards can be played? Because obviously you can't do it on the first one, you can't do it on the second one. Maybe by the third time you see a card, you can kind of figure it out, I think. But yeah, it is really, really tough. With 16 cards in play in 2 different hands, and obviously how much each push varies.
Giant Skeleton down on defense for Cream Real Betis. 2 Musketeers behind, so if that second one creeps up, you'll see a lot of Lightning value. Should go ahead and go 1, 2, 3. There you go. Easy decision for AC on that one.
Yeah, why not? Easy value, smart decision, positive trade. Lightning is going to be back in cycle in a little bit. You get to go on offense.
Slight lead right now for Space Station Gaming in this right-hand lane battle. Giant Skeleton pushing into enemy territory right now as we go into sudden death overtime. A little under 100 HP lead right now for Space Station, but it does feel like they have the better of the matchup.
So Giant Skeleton bombs going off, cleaning up everything on both sides of the river, but nothing there to catch this Giant Skeleton to cross. Gets a tank in for that graveyard, and now walking on through to the tower. Mega Knight comes down a little bit late.
Maybe I spoke a half second too soon there, Andrew. Cream Real Betis going out to a big lead, 12:56 on the right-hand side. Have not seen any really aggressive offense, any significant offense out of Space Station.
Yeah, the fact that Space Station is only behind by about 500 HP and they haven't gone heavy here. And now we see at the very first Royal Giant graveyard push in. Royal Giant does get picked up by that Inferno Tower. Lightning comes in.
And look at this, the lead swings the opposite direction. Defensive Poison and Musketeer onto the right-hand side. 9:31 remains. Mega Knight to meet the Giant Skeleton up high, and that Heal Spirit gets Knight's value.
Yeah, this is going to be a very, very interesting battle at the bridge here for the next minute, because they both know, all 4 of these gentlemen know that they have to, whoever wins this next bridge battle most likely wins the game and the set.
You know, let me correct myself there, Andrew. I thought the Heal Spirit was going to get the Musketeer, but the Musketeer was just a little bit too close. Mega Knight took it off the board, so the Heal Spirit does not do as much for Cream Royale Betis as maybe they would have hoped, and now Graveyard Royal Giant in on the right-hand side. Dangerously into spell cycle range now is Cream's right-hand tower.
Yeah, they just need to get that lightning in with any bit of help. Freeze comes down for Cream. No tanks there, though. This should be an easy win here for Spacestation as long as they can keep this at bay.
Lightning comes in, 54 HP, Fireball finishes it off. AC and RF do it into clean win to open things up. And you see a nice big hug. Is that Luis in there as well?
I think it is. I was like, that's not RF. I believe it's Luis. You can see how hyped up he is, and even, I think, startled AC at the very beginning of that. And Crap taking a big, big breath, knowing, you know, AC knows that we're big fans of him. He's a friend of ours, but we have a job to do here at the booth. And I think everyone out there was wondering, is this the correct 2v2 duo to bring out? Well, you know, Diego E and Michifu, they haven't faced a lot of top-tier talent, but what we saw to RF and AC today was really, really nice. They felt like they were back in fighting form.
Yeah, no, it really did feel like they were on point. It is, you know, you're seeing a team that's been good, but now we've seen Diego E and Michifu twice against the Elite, and they're good. They are a solid 2v2 duo. I don't think we're at a point where you can really call them elite yet, despite the gaudy record. And I don't know for sure that was Luis, but between the jacket and the grabbing the face/neck area, it does feel like that was Trader Luis from my call.
Yeah, completely. So Diego E and Michifu now dropping 2 sets in a row now to AC, RF, Azilius, and Wolfmac back to back. And I mean, you call it, Rich. Before that, it is Pain, Queso, Dig, and Liquid, none of which have outstanding 2v2 duos. So maybe this is the moment where Cream starts to worry a little bit about their 2v2 squad. However, what they've done in King of the Hill and what Michifu has done in King of the Hill gives them a little bit of breathing room.
Look, their 2v2 is good. They're a good 2v2 duo. There's no question about that. They're not elite. I think that's the referendum that we've got over these last 2 weeks, is that Diego and Michi just aren't in the elite yet. They're not in that top tier. They are not a Morton and Sam. They are not a Buff and Azelius. They're not an AC and RF. Could they get there with some more time together? Potentially. But so far we know that they are a solid duo right in the middle of the pack of 2v2.
Yeah, and you know what? With what the rest of their team has been doing, it makes sense that Cream has been having to struggle and fight to get the record that they have. But because of the work that all the other players have done, they're still doing it. They're still in that top spot. Pedro, though, is the one big question mark, or honestly, at this point, almost a blemish on the resume of Cream, just because he's been performing so poorly this season. Today is the day that we saw Razor turn it around a little bit for Liquid. If Pedro doesn't turn it around today, what does that spell for the rest of his season? I mean, is this a must-have good performance day for Pedro? I think that's the sentence.
Yeah. I think all of that grammar was perfect, Andrew, and I support you, even if it wasn't. So I don't know. For Pedro, he has not been on form as of late. Leading into this season and in this season has not quite been the Pedro that you expect to see. I doubt they fully bench him at some point, you know, unless Diego E's doing some great stuff in practice. I don't suspect they fully bench Pedro. You feel like he can always come out and do something great. But, you know, as we get closer and closer, it wouldn't be the craziest thing. I think the bigger worry for Cream isn't right now, because with their record, with what they have left, they have Chivas left. I believe they have Misfits next week. I don't see Cream missing playoffs. My question is, can Pedro get in form for playoffs?
Yeah, and that's a big part of why I think he is leading things off. You see Pedro in that first spot for Cream, Royale Betis, then Michifu and Belican. No surprises there for the three gentlemen coming out. The God RF leading things off, Samuel Basoto in the second spot, and Lapacati closing things out. Lapo moved into that 1v1 set last time for Spacestation Gaming. And Rich, this is the time to do it. This is the place to do it for Pedro 15 in this first game of King of the Hill.
Yeah, you want to get RF out early the way he's been in King of the Hill so far. 6-3 on the season with 2 King of the Hill sweeps. And 2 big-time sweeps, too. A nice one against Chivas, but then opening things up against Pain Gaming, kind of putting them on notice that he was in form. So, I don't know. This is the one where we talked about this beforehand. I think that you go for something big, outlandish, and just try to get RF off the board.
Yeah, it is crazy that RF is the type of person that you have to worry about for the first 2 sets. And getting him out, you have to get him down 3 times, 3 separate games, and that's a very difficult task.
There are a few players like that, Andrew, who are just lightning in a bottle. RF is one of them. Ruben is one of them. And, a lot of people thought that Pedro would be one of them. So far, that has not been the case here in CRL West, or really throughout his CRL career. He was pretty good back in Latin America, but 50-50 win rate overall. For kicks, he went with a 65% win rate on some decent performance in the 1v1 set, but has not quite turned into the world beater that Team Liquid's coach Eric Benamou said for a long time he would be.
Yeah, and some of the stuff we've seen Pedro do in the off season is incredible, but again, like you said, in CRL, it just hasn't happened, and I do believe that Graveyard could hurt him here. A lot on the board and a lot of elixir to deal with it in his hand, but still a heavy push coming across this bridge, and a great heal spirit to keep that E-Wiz alive.
Yeah, that bar barrel basically fed the heal spirit and kept the E-Wiz going, so kind of backfires a little bit, does stop most of the bleeding, but RF shouldn't have to spend at all to deal with this the opposite end, and will end up with a 2 elixir advantage.
Yeah, 2 elixir advantage, and, well, actually no, the damage advantage goes back to Pedro with that 1 swing in from the Knight.
RF's head-to-head play has continued to improve over time. 75% win rate in the spring, currently 67% win rate in head-to-head play in this season. Mega Knight and E-Wiz on defense. Go ahead, Enter, sorry.
Just saying, he's just getting really aggressive with these graveyards. He knows that Mega Knight E-Wiz combination can come down every single time. So this time he's going to try to get a little bit more damage in with the poison, but now he doesn't have the poison at the bridge. E-Wiz doesn't stop where RF needs, but still a lot here crossing over.
Yeah, this is a boulder rolling downhill against Pedro right now, and you talk about those spends. Maybe he just believes so strongly in the Ice Wiz NATO Cage combination that he believes that he can overspend and still come back and play defense.
Yeah, I mean, he did it on that last push, but look at where the Elixir's at right now, and I have a feeling RF is just going to keep his foot on the gas. I think he goes back in with this. Yep, there it is. Mega Knight in the back to set up that next offense.
Yeah, if you give up a 1 elixir advantage every single time you make this exchange happen, that's going to soon turn into 3 total or 4 total, and we're seeing that grow and grow right now. Finally high poison to deal with some of these troops and not allow the counter push through, but a bar barrel does tank for a little bit.
Yeah, bar barrel tanks for just a second. There's the offensive poison coming in from RF as he gets the Ice Wiz, the Barbarian, and the Baby Dragon. Really, really great value there, which is going to help him win this bridge battle.
Final minute 20, 80 seconds left in this opening game of King of the Hill. Right now, pretty close. RF with the lead, 17-15 to 17-81. Sets up Mega Knight to protect the Hunter. Poison in the opposite direction.
Yeah, nice poison there from Pedro. Pedro's been doing some really nice things. That last sequence there, he had a very nice high Goblin Cage to keep his Ice Wizard on the board. So Pedro playing this very, very well, and that's why he is in the lead. But it does, for some reason, still feel like this is RF's game to lose.
Oh, and there's the damage right there. Huge, huge graveyard. Yeah. Poison comes in maybe a little late there, maybe a little bit extra, but he had so much elixir, he felt, why not at that moment?
So RF gets a great heal spirit on top of that Hunter. Hunter's going to help clean up the Knight and the Baby Dragon. Mega Knight in the back with the E-Wiz. Great defense there from the God RF.
Yeah, perfectly built there from RF, and now has a good counter push. And it looks like there's going to be one more opportunity for Pedro to go the opposite direction, but that's going to be a very small opportunity. No tank can get across. E-Wiz will play defense, and it looks like RF is going to take game number 1 of King of the Hill.
Yep, 15 seconds remaining. There's the last poison coming in from both of these guys. Now the bridge battle going to ensue with graveyards on the back end. It's going to be all about that RNG, but it's going to go to RF.
So Pedro's woes continue on the season. Drops to a 1-8 record in CRL West for this fall split. RF continues to stack dubs on his side.
Yeah, I mean, 1-8 for Pedro, bringing his lifetime career record to 51%. We're talking about a guy that started 55%, 61%, and 56% in his career in head-to-head, and has now dropped down to 11% this season. No matter where he comes out for Cream, it doesn't seem to be working. And I'm at this point wondering if in the next match we even see him at all.
Yeah, it's a distinctive possibility that we see Diego E in there. And look, Diego E has been solid in head-to-head play during the offseason. between his work in in a couple of the small different Brenchong, I think it wasn't Brenchong, the other Revel Amar tournaments, not to mention what he did back in the spring. King of the Hill for the spring season, he went 5-1 with a sweep.
Yeah.
I don't see a reason why not to mix him in next week.
Yeah, I think you're correct, or we are correct. I think Diego E, it's time for him to come in. It's time for Pedro to take a seat until he can figure out what's wrong. He just isn't playing the type of caliber Clash Royale that you have to play at this far in the game. We're at CRL 2020 in the fall. Those types of plays that we see out of him aren't going to work. We saw the same kind of things out of Kevin, a couple matches ago, but he adjusted really, really quickly. He bounced back and he had a great performance in his last match. That's what a rookie can do. Now, what can Pedro do?
Not entirely sure. And Cream in a place they haven't been a lot, where they've lost the first 3 games, and now they're relying on their duo to come from behind in this one between St. Belican and Michifu, having to win, have to take out RF, Lapacati, and Samuel, and then send someone into the 1v1 who you have to imagine is going to be Belly again.
Yeah, and if you go and you take a look here at the numbers from Cream, both of those matches that they lost were when they still won that 2v2 set. They have really, really struggled a lot of the times against these better squads in the King of the Hill. And we're starting to see it again today because they don't have that third person that they can rely on for a win on any given day. It feels like it's just 2 people in Michifu and Belican right now.
I mean, it really is 2 people in Michifu and Belican. That's what their King of the Hill has been so far. You go look at the King of the Hill numbers for Cream overall. Belly is 7-4. Michifu is 4-3. Pedro has not picked up a King of the Hill win. Diego E hasn't played King of the Hill. You're 100% right. It is all Michi and Belly in this set.
So here we go. Michi trying to do it once again in their last match. He took down Jupiter King to extend it, of course, or push it to that third set where Belican 2-0'd Jupiter. And then before that, Michi took down Vitor and Wallace, but lost to Lucas, not quite able to complete the sweep against Payne.
RF has to be feeling so insanely confident this year. I mean, we've talked a lot about the crazy quality 2020 he's had and continues to be so good, with a chance right now to run through 2 more, put Spacestation at 4-2, and move them to the top end of the pack.
Here we go. Michi going Lava Hound. 1 lane.
So you wait until double elixir in 2v2 for Lava Hound, but go Lava first play in King of the Hill.
Against a graveyard deck here in RF, and you see that this flying machine is going to help with that Ice Wizard. But a Fireball has to come down, so that's actually really fortunate there for the God RF. Now he's able to play this Baby Dragon up high and really, really help with this push coming in.
RF, plenty of elixir to work on the back end. Poison comes down, Ice Wiz to slow things up.
Perfect timing there on this sequence, and if I'm anyone and I see those 5 cards in the hand of the God RF, I don't feel great.
Well, especially the way that he played every single piece of that exchange. From Lava comes down first for Michi, sets up for defense, puts pressure on offense, gets a ton of damage, and then defends pretty much. If you were going to write a textbook on how to play that entire sequence, we just saw it happen.
Yeah, and the defensive poison with the late Ice Wizard to tank for the Baby Dragon, literally textbook plays from the God RF, and he even throws out a little BM Laughing Goblin because he's better than you in this matchup. He just is.
Well, and there's a word you use there, Andrew, that I really like, and that's the word late. Because there's such a feeling like you want to get stuff down in this matchup, right? Like you don't want to sit there and let things happen. But he waits on the poison, waits on the Ice Wiz, and gets everything down at the exact right time, which is so critical.
Yeah, and RF here throwing out another Laughing Goblin, wondering here if the next 45 seconds he can hold on to this lead, setting up for the defense already. And this is going to be a big sequence here, because this is where Michifu is going to sell out, and RF needs to get a big enough stop here to in turn create a slight counter push if he does lose this tower.
Poison High takes care of the Flying Machine. It should stay in poison range, and it does. So Flying Machine goes down. Poison will not be available yet on this sequence. He should be back to it, though, I believe, and 1 more card, so should pop up Poison here in just a moment, although might go ahead and NATO this back.
Yeah, I should imagine the NATO's going to come in. Miner's still on top of that Ice Wizard. Flying Machine on top of the Knight. Nothing on top of the tower other than the Lava Hound. Baby Dragon here holding the line, and RF keeps with the BM here on Michifu, knowing that he had a very, very good game. I'm wondering if he's BMing because if it weren't for that first sequence, maybe Michi would have actually won that game.
Yeah, I mean, I want to go back. I'm going to sit back after this and watch that whole game again on slow motion because that was a lesson. That was an absolute lesson in how to play that matchup. RF did everything about it perfectly, and I would love to have a microphone in there to know what he is saying to the rest of his team right now.
Yeah, so I'm actually looking at a bit of the replay right now, and they both kind of hold for a second at the beginning, and then RF just cycles cards in the back. Michi does go in with that Lava Hound as his first card left-hand side, so RF just goes Night Graveyard opposite, and that's basically all she wrote. Michi has to play a Bar Barrel there to respond early, maybe because of his cycle. Not able to get those Barbarians down, which is what would have been ideal for him. As you can see there on the left-hand side, he did have the Barbs.
So let's go back and take a look at this opening sequence. You see the Ice Wiz is up high, slowing down the Lava Hound. A lot of damage comes in on the right-hand side, and you can see when the Flying Machine comes down on the back end, you feel like, okay, there's going to be so much damage on the left, but the Baby Dragon gets the pickup, and when this Baby Dragon survives here, that just forces Michifu to do so much more.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that I learned with a lot from Belly coaching me was when you're playing Lava Hound, and we were doing Lava Clone, but you just have to know when to sacrifice tower damage. And Michifu made his decision late there with that Fireball on the right-hand side. He fireballed too late, or he should have fireballed way earlier to clean up those skeletons. But the fact that he fireballs when he did after the skeletons had already done so much damage, he should have just eaten those last few skeletons. His tower probably would have been around a 400 to 500 HP, but then he would have been able to support that Flying Machine and get that Baby Dragon off the board and be able to create some semblance of a tower trade. But instead, that Fireball comes out late, 4 elixir down, no way to get that damage in on tower.
Well, it becomes a weird argument, right, between the skill of fast cycle decks versus big beatdown decks, right? The big beatdown that people say, oh, there's not much decision making, but one wrong decision completely tanks everything, whereas fast cycle decks give you the opportunity to make recovery if you do make a mistake. So it's sort of a 50-50. You have to make every decision count with a big deck like Lava, whereas you have to be good at managing the micro and understanding the matchup with a quick cycle deck.
And then you add in on top of that you're going up against the person that's the best in the entire world with said win condition or said archetype. And it makes it a lot harder because he knows the matchup. And like I said, he's better than you when he's playing this deck. It's almost the case 100% of the time with RF, as long as he doesn't have a horrible matchup. That's what happens when he runs Splash Yard. And all of those decisions made, that one thing that we're talking about, like you said, with Beatdown, a late Fireball, 4 elixir that you can't support a push, with Lava Hound that you have to have a perfectly supported push coming across the river, there's no way to bounce back. RF's going to defend for the next minute and a half.
So here we go, game number 3. Does RF get his 3rd King of the Hill sweep of the season? That's right, 3 on the season, or can Belly stop the train right here? The King of the Hill star, the head-to-head star so far for Cream, in a really important spot.
Yeah, Bellican now needing to earn that money. And he goes Lava Hound in the back, wondering if we're going to see something very similar out of Belly, but maybe with the clone instead.
Well, that would be very Bellican to go with Lava Clone. Real Ghost cycles to the right-hand side.
Yeah, really curious to see if he even decides to defend. Bellican will defend now because the Hunter's going to come up high on top of that lava. Good timing on that Heal Spirit, even better Fireball.
And again, picture-perfect defense out of RF on that one. Comes out slightly behind, though. Bellican getting that left-hand tower down to 2,000 HP.
Yeah, the important thing, though, is that RF survived really, really well. A lot of HP, and now he's going to start messing with Bellican's cycle. That also means that the next time Bellican decides to go on the offense, RF will also go heavy on the opposite lane. So this has all become... the ball is bounced in favor of the God RF, but he still has a lot of great plays ahead of him if he wants to win this matchup.
Pressure Ghost forces out the cage to the right-hand side. St. Bellican's personal best on ladder, 85-26. Best finish, 4th overall in the global ladder rankings.
The Bellican now resetting, looking like he's going to continue to play this battle on the right-hand side.
And the Fisherman does come back and stay alive a little bit longer. That works out nicely for RF. Gonna get, looks like 2 shots from the Royal Giant on the right-hand side.
Yeah, and really smart here to not even send in 1 extra elixir. Even if it was just a heal spirit, RF did exactly the correct thing. Let that push do what it was going to, and then reset, because he does not want to be down elixir when having to defend against Belican's lava pushes.
I think this is the second time we've seen this Royal Giant, Royal Ghost deck today, and the Royal Ghost continues to be an absolute pest. Notice that we talked about messing with the cycle of Belican. Royal Ghost forcing the Miner to come out on defense.
Yeah, and that's, again, one of the reasons why I love the Royal Ghost so much. It demands a response, it's beefy enough, it's got great splash damage, and now it's really just annoying to kind of deal with its path.
So Royal Ghost does take care of the Barb Hut on the right-hand side. RF setting up for defense this time around. Flying Machine shouldn't be too difficult to deal with. Barb Barrel does not turn the Flying Machine, but Princess will take care of it.
And this is about to be a crazy 5-game sweep from the God RF over Cream if he can end up taking this here. And right now he's doing a really good job of controlling the game. Belican cannot get a Lava Hound down because there's no way he can save 7 elixir for that and the other 3 just for defense.
Does choose to fireball the Flying Machine and Tower, and this is absolute destruction. Man. 264 on the right-hand side.
The God RF looking to go 5 in a row.
Spacestation Gaming gonna come back after a bit of a stumble against SK. They went 0-5. Well, light it up like dynamite. They're gonna go 5-0 the opposite direction here. Unbelievable play from the God RF and Spacestation today.
Yeah, it's just incredible what he does in 2v2 and turns around and does it in King of the Hill. Belican doing everything he can to try to get damage on Tower, but now has to deal with this Royal Giant push. Gob Hut maybe comes in late. There's the fireball up high. RF does miss the fireball, but now he's only 42 damage away from a sweep.
Yeah, no, it's put it in the book, send it to the line. How many other catchphrases can you show out there? GG, well played, 5-0. Are we going to see the yawn from RF today? What do we got on you? You know he's going to eye check the camera here.
He just gives us a couple looks. A little bit of a sigh of relief there. Let's just go ahead and talk through this name-wise. Belican, Michifu, Pedro 15 today. Diego B, Adrian, Pompeo, Lucas, Wallace, Vitor, all in a row for the God RF in King of the Hill. Those are the 3 sweeps he's already put up this season. That is a quick 5-0 for Space Station. A dominant win over a team that felt very evenly matched with them. This was a really tough one for us to predict at the top of the day, Rich. Space Station Gaming made all the rest of the people out there picking Cream look like fools.
Yeah. No, this was unbelievable. This was a brilliant performance from RF. He played perfect Clash Royale. And that's a big thing. He just played perfect Clash Royale. Go through any of these tapes and find me a mistake, and I'll show you a guy who's nitpicking trying to find mistakes. This was brilliant gameplay from RF. Really well planned all the way around. Good matchmaking, of course, overall from the team. But let's take this one more time. 3 King of the Hill sweeps on this season alone. The dude is insane.
Yeah, that means in half of their matches, RF has gotten a King of the Hill sweep. And by the way, in the rest of those matches, he's pretty much gotten 2 wins in that 2v2. It was only against Chivas and SK that RF struggled this season. Otherwise, he has just been incredibly dominant. Space Station Gaming, Lapicati and Samuel not needed today. It's going to be all about the God RF and aw crap. Space Station Gaming doing what they've done many times before, which is let you know that they maybe don't start the strongest, but they're not going anywhere, and playoffs are definitely in line for them.
This, in my opinion, this is the best and most important performance of Space Station so far this season. Yep. Yes, they looked good in that opening matchup. You know, Lapo and RF doing great in 2v2, RF sweeping against Pain. But here they go against a team that was also putting up a pretty solid record, one they're competing for playoff placement with. AC and RF finally looking like they are completely dialed in 2v2, showing that difference in level. And then RF just playing, again, perfect Clash Royale. If there's a season-defining victory for this regular season, I think this is the one for Spacestation.
It's huge. It's a really huge win for Spacestation, but one thing about it is that it only focuses on half of the team. Now, Lapicati feels like he's in the right place, but we talked earlier about maybe Pedro needing to get ready for playoffs. I'm a little hesitant to say that Samuel Basoto is in top fighting form. I feel like they maybe are looking for a little bit more out of him, but the thing is that his other teammates have been able to do it so well. Let's remember, he got 0-2'd by Jupiter King, but the turnaround in 2-1 Adrian Piedra. Since then, we haven't seen him in the 1v1 set. I'm very, very curious to see what he can do and if he's going to be ready for playoffs, because we saw what happened when they ran into SK, and you talk about being outclassed. I don't feel like SSG and SK are like this, but it really felt like it in that match.
Well, I think that what you do in that situation, right, is that you plan for Samuel. You're putting together your 5-set lineup when you get into the playoff picture, and the other team has to put out not their top 1v1 guy at some point there. So you kind of plan for RF to be up against whoever their number 1 guy is, maybe Lapo, and you try to place Samuel somewhere in there to go for their number 2 or number 3. So and also keep in mind, Andrew, let's go back to what happened last in the spring. Samuel didn't look amazing during the regular season, and then came up with the massive clutch against Tribe. So I don't know. If we're talking about buy or sell on Spacestation right now, I'm buying.
Oh, 100% I'm buying, and we'll take a look right now at the standings. SK still perfect through 5-0, right behind them, Team Queso on the shoulders of Ruben, but still some work from their other players there. 4-1. Tribe now at 4-2, along with Spacestation Gaming. They are tied up with that 3-set differential. Tribe taking the edge here. Dignitas right behind them at 3-2. Cream Real Betis following to 6th place at 3-3. And Rich, for these bottom 4, does it feel like the playoffs are still hopeful for them? Can it still happen for them?
This is going to be really, really difficult. And you talk about the matchups they have. Pain maybe is the best candidate for something like this. Pain does, I believe, have Dig tomorrow, and they could fight into a number 6 spot potentially. But with how close the top 6 are, they have to hope that somebody stumbles on the back end. I don't think Chivas, Liquid, or Misfits are really in control of their own destiny at this point.
Yeah, and it does really feel like Pain is the one squad that can maybe squeak in, but they still do have to face off against Team Queso and Ruben. So tomorrow, speaking of Team Queso, speaking of double headers, Team Queso will be facing off against Chivas Esports, who just picked up their very first win last weekend. Following that will be Dignitas going up against Pain, and closing out the day, 5-0 against 0-5. It's going to be Misfits going up against SK Gaming to maybe pull off a big time upset to close off our Sunday.
It'll be an interesting day tomorrow, Andrew. Queso with a chance to not just continue to stay in second place, but take a firm stranglehold on that second place alongside SK, with a chance to not quite clinch the top 2, but make it very, very difficult to be unseated from those top 2 spots. We do have one more important question, Andrew. Of course, we're picking an MVP of the weekend. We have 3 pretty good candidates who all came out today to put their name in the hat. 3 King of the Hill sweepers. You have your King of the Hill sweep from IMJP finally in that column. You have your sweep from Buffmac, and then of course you have RF. Is RF the clear pick just because it's the 5-0 day?
I think so. I mean, for a minute there, I wanted to give it to maybe Buffmac, but Buffmac struggling in that 2v2 set, them getting 2-0'd by Razor and Canario, a squad that struggled a bit. It's hard to kind of tip the hat in that direction. RF did the whole thing once again today. He won 5 games in a row. You only have to win 5 to do it, and he won all of them. He was in every single one of them. He made great plays in 2v2 and better plays in 1v1. He had great matchups. It has to go to the God RF for me. Am I a little biased because I've picked him a couple times now? No. He just plays really, really freaking good, and he did it once again today. He's my MVP.
Yeah, I think that he's the current MVP leader. The big question is, can IMJP do something like this again tomorrow? If he comes out and has a huge performance at King of the Hill again tomorrow, there might be some balance. And of course, we have a lot of players yet to come out tomorrow as well. So RF currently our MVP leader. JP with a chance to tie things up tomorrow, maybe take away that crown. Man, this was a fun one today, Andrew. King of the Hill, so wild with all these sweeps.
Yeah, it's crazy to think of how many King of the Hill sweeps have happened this season with how high caliber talent we have. And of course, I'm really excited to see tomorrow if SK can pretty much clinch their playoff spot.
So we'll be back tomorrow. That's 10 a.m. in the West, 1 p.m. in the East, 7 p.m. if you are in Central Europe. Don't forget to follow at Esports Royale EN or Esports Royale in whatever language you prefer. That's Andrew Guy. I'm Rich Slayton. We'll see you back here mañana. And yes, in case you missed it, that was a BTS reference earlier. See you on Sunday.